Nothing ever goes right in life. Problems are choking you out. And you keep asking yourself, why does bad stuff happen? And what's the point of life anyway? She had issues in all sorts of areas of her life, and it was all caused by this sickness in her soul that nobody could figure out. The cure wasn't therapy. It was a cold, logical command from a stranger who showed her the way forward. She was dealing with a system error caused by a function installed by the people around her. On this channel, we use stories to pass on deep, simple, philosophical and existential teachings that seriously change your life. Today, you'll get your hands on an instruction manual for human functions, dilemmas, and personal problems. This story will help you out with the big relationship, family, and personal problems. It shows you the logic behind building an inner center of gravity based not on what you feel, but on your life goals. For more deep wisdom, think about liking and subscribing to the channel. Let's start from the beginning. The hiss of the bottle steamer cuts through the silence. It's the only sound in a kitchen made of white marble and cold steel, a room that costs more than her car and has just as much warmth. Evelyn's hands move with a practiced, sterile efficiency. Wipe counter, check monitor, log feeding time, sterilize, repeat. She is a premium nanny, a title that really means she is a logistics manager for a 3-foot-tall client. Her eyes drift to the art on the wall, a single black line on a vast white canvas. She feels a dull kinship with it. Clean, precise, perfectly placed, and fundamentally empty. The question that haunts her isn't a scream anymore. It's a flat, quiet diagnosis that loops in her head. Is this it? We see the structure of her life. It's a luxury playpen. The bars are padded with a high salary, the respect of her employers, and the validation of her family. But it is, without question, a containment. This is the nature of the existential void. It's not the dramatic, roaring emptiness of poverty or crisis. It is the specific, quiet hell of the comfortable. It's the slow dawning horror that the life you worked so hard to build is a flat, sterile plateau. The philosopher Albert Camus identified this as the absurd. He wrote of Sisyphus, doomed to push a rock up a hill for eternity, finding meaning only in the struggle. Evelyn's rock is just smaller, shinier, and needs to be warmed to 98.6 degrees. The routine itself isn't the poison. The poison is the meaninglessness of the routine. She is the scaffolding for another human's development. She manages the enrichment schedules, the playdates, the language acquisition. She ensures they grow, they learn, they become. But the scaffolding is always temporary, and it has no life of its own. Her employers call her a lifesaver. Her mother calls her a natural. She feels like a phantom, a hollow functionary paid to occupy a space that is slowly draining the color from her own world. The paycheck arrives, the bills are paid, and the void just widens, a silent confirmation that this is, in fact, all there is. The shift ends. The drive home is an intermission of grey anesthesia. Her key turns in the lock of her own apartment. It is just as clean, just as quiet. Her companion Liam is on the couch, a familiar shape in the blue-grey light of his laptop. He is an accountant, a man who finds genuine peace in the predictable outcome of numbers. He is the digital ghost. He murmurs a greeting, his eyes never leaving the screen. The silence of her workplace has simply followed her home. She hasn't escaped the sterile box. She has merely commuted to a smaller one. There is no relief here. There is only a continuation. The absence of conflict is not peace. It is a vacuum. This is the roommate syndrome. The heat that once defined their relationship has cooled into simple logistics. Their conversations are about utility bills, grocery lists, and whose turn it is to take out the trash. They are not partners. They are co-managers of a small, solvent domestic corporation. She stands in the doorway, invisible, watching him. The loneliness she feels is so profound it's physical, a cold weight in her chest. She is more alone in this room with him than she ever is by herself. At work, she is a function. At home, she is an apparition. The void is no longer just a professional hazard. It has contaminated her home. It has become the air she breathes. This is the dual chaos, a perfectly engineered trap. The professional void is reinforced by the interpersonal one. One guarantees the other. When work is a desert, we look to home for an oasis. But when home is the same desert, just with different furniture, There is nowhere left to look. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote of this. He called it the sickness unto death. Not a sickness of the body, but the crushing despair of not being your true self. Evelyn is performing two roles. She is Evelyn, the premium nanny for her employers, and Evelyn, the stable companion for Liam. But the person underneath both masks, the one with secret, dormant passions, is suffocating. She is dying the slowest, most comfortable, and most socially acceptable death imaginable. The death by a good, stable, predictable life. Liam isn't cruel. He is the anchor. He loves her stability. He loves the predictability of her paycheck. He sees her quiet emptiness not as a symptom of a problem, but as peace. He is comfortable in this harbor. He cannot understand that she feels chained to the floor of it. His contentment is the ultimate invalidation of her pain. It confirms her deepest fear, that this isn't a problem to be solved, but a simple, unchangeable fact. And so she stands there, a ghost in the hallway of her own life. She has moved from one empty, well-lit box to another. She is trapped not by force, but by a suffocating, gentle consensus. The question then is a terrifying one. How do you even begin to escape a prison when the walls are made of comfort, and the jailer is the person who shares your bed, who looks up from his screen just long enough to ask, "Hey, did you remember to pick up milk?" She stands in the living room for a long moment, the silence of the apartment settling around her like dust. The only sound is the rhythmic, quiet tapping of Liam's keyboard. He is in his element, his face illuminated by the blue glow of a complex spreadsheet. He is the mismatched anchor, a man who has found his purpose in the balanced certainty of numbers. He is secure, he is stable, and his stability is a weight. Evelyn tries to breach the silence to make a connection. "Long day," she offers to his back. "Hmm?" he replies. Not a question, just a sound. His fingers never stop. "Yeah, just, you know, the usual." He nods, his focus clearly 1,000 miles away, deep inside his digital world. The attempt, as small as it was, fails. The roommate syndrome is complete. She is invisible. This profound loneliness, the specific ache of being unseen by the one person you are supposed to share a life with, pushes her toward the only other available connection. She sinks into the other end of the couch and pulls out her phone. It's a reflex, a twitch. If the person next to her is a blank wall, she will find a window. But the window she chooses looks out onto a world designed to make her feel small. She opens the glowing portal. She begins to doom scroll. It is an act of self-harm disguised as zoning out. This is the comparison trap, the second layer of her existential pain. It is the symptom of the disconnect. We see with a kind of clinical digital clarity what triggers her. An old college acquaintance has just posted photos of her grand opening, a small artisanal pottery studio. The post is full of comments like, "living the dream," and "so brave." Evelyn looks at the messy, joyful, purposeful face of this woman, covered in clay. Then another scroll. A family she used to nanny for on a philanthropic trip to build a school in a small village. Their children are smiling, holding tools. "Teaching them what matters," the caption reads. The feed becomes a mirror, but it's a funhouse mirror. It reflects back not her own image, but the magnified, curated images of everyone else's function. The potter has a function. The philanthropic family has a function. They are all implanting themselves, to use a term she wouldn't yet understand. She is just watching. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer would have recognized this immediately. He argued that the root of all suffering is the will, the endless, striving, hungry desire for things. Her scrolling is not relaxation, it is a raw act of unfulfilled desire. She is mainlining pure, uncut evidence of what she lacks. Each image, each caption is a small paper cut. And it's not just envy. It's something deeper, what Friedrich Nietzsche called ressentiment. This isn't the healthy envy that might spur one to action. This is the bitter, resentful poison of the trapped. It's the voice that doesn't say, "I want to do that." It's the voice that whispers, "Why do they get to do that while I am stuck here? Why is it so easy for them and so impossible for me?" She is defining her own worth, or lack of it, not by her own actions, but by the perceived filtered success of others. It's a sickness of the spirit. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti spoke of this. He said that all comparison is a form of violence. It is the tyranny of measurement. We are a culture obsessed with measuring. But Evelyn is measuring her internal, chaotic, empty-feeling reality against their external, curated and polished highlight reel. It is a rigged game she can never win. She is measuring her void against their fullness, and the result is a foregone conclusion. The scrolling only confirms her darkest suspicion, that she is fundamentally lacking, that she is a failure not for any great sin, but for the simple, quiet sin of being stagnant. And the man sitting 5 feet away from her is the amplifier for all of it. Liam, the mismatched anchor, provides no internal validation. He is not a mirror. He is a wall. His contentment with the status quo, his complete lack of this existential hunger, invalidates her pain. It makes her feel crazy, because he is not there to see her, to reflect her, to say, "You are more than this." She is forced to look for her reflection elsewhere. And she finds it in the most distorted mirror ever invented by humanity. The endless, anonymous scroll. It confirms his unspoken message. You are not enough. She finally locks the phone. The screen goes dark. The room is silent again, save for the quiet, efficient click-clack of Liam's keyboard. The numbers are balancing. His world makes sense. Hers is a pit of comparison and quiet despair. The heat of shame and resentment burns in her face. Her stomach is a cold, tight knot. She feels worse. She feels more empty. She feels more trapped. She has sought connection, or at least distraction, and all she has found is more proof of her own inadequacy. She looks at the black line on the white canvas on the wall. At least it isn't trying to be anything else. The phone buzzes on the coffee table, a sharp, demanding sound that cuts through the apartment's thick silence. She sees the caller ID. Mom. A complex cocktail of love, guilt, and exhaustion floods her system. She answers, putting on the voice, the good daughter voice. Hey, Mom, how are you? The call is a script. It's always the same script. Her mother's voice is warm, genuinely loving, and utterly devastating. I was just thinking about you, honey. Saw Mrs. Gable at the store. She was just raving about you, said her new nanny is a disaster. She said, nobody is like Evelyn. She's just a natural. She has such a gift. Evelyn's fingers tighten on the phone. A gift. That word. She murmurs her thanks. Yeah, they were a nice family. She lets her mother talk, her voice a familiar, comfortable static, but inside, her mind is screaming. This gift is the family script. It's the pre-written biography she was handed as a child. Evelyn, the one who's good with kids. Evelyn, the responsible one. Evelyn, the stable one. It was a role, a costume, given to her out of love. But the costume has fused with her skin. The praise is not a compliment. It's a reinforcement bar on her cage. She is dying inside, and the person who loves her most is handing her another brick, smiling, and telling her to build her prison higher. This is the third layer of the trap. This is identity foreclosure. It's a psychological term for what happens when you commit to an identity not through exploration, but through inheritance. You don't choose the path, you are assigned it. And if you are praised for walking it, if you are rewarded for it, you can go your entire life without ever realizing the path is not your own. You just assume that the deep, aching emptiness in your gut is a normal part of the journey. You assume that everyone feels like an imposter. You assume that this is it, because you were told repeatedly that this is good. The philosopher Carl Gustav Jung had a name for this. He called it the persona. The persona is the mask we create to function in society. It's the professional face, the good daughter voice, the stable companion role. It is a necessary tool, but for Evelyn the tool has become the master. The Evelyn the nanny mask is so perfectly crafted, so highly rewarded, that she has forgotten the face underneath. She is all persona and no self. The existential void we saw in the sterile kitchen is the sound of her suffocated self, the true individual, banging on the inside of the mask, begging for air. The praise from her mother, the family script, is the glue that keeps the mask in place. It is what the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would call herd morality. It's the value system of the group, the family, the tribe. And the herd's highest values are almost always safety, stability, and predictability. The The herd is terrified of the individual who wants to break away, the one who wants to forge a new path in the wilderness. Not because the herd is malicious, but because it is afraid. It wants to protect its members. Her mother's voice, full of love and pride, is the herd's most powerful weapon, whispering, "Stay here. It is safe. You are good at this. Do not change." This is the tragedy. The family script is not an enemy she can fight. It's a lullaby sung by people she loves. So when she has a fleeting, wild thought of doing something else, like the secret, ridiculous passion she hides on her laptop, the voice that shoots it down is not her own. It's her mother's. The voice of her inner critic is the internalized voice of the herd. A gift with kids, it says. Don't be ungrateful. Who do you think you are to want something else? The script has been so deeply programmed that she is now her own jailer. She looks at her reflection in the dark television screen. A pale, tired woman holding a phone. A good daughter. A premium nanny. A stable companion. A complete and total fraud. Her mother is saying something about a cousin's baby shower. Evelyn nods, as if her mother can see her. That's great, Mom. The identity foreclosure is complete. She is so busy performing the life everyone else wrote for her that she has no time or energy to live her own. She is a biography written in the third person, and she is just turning the pages, watching someone else's story unfold. The call ends. Love you, honey. Love you too, Mom. She hangs up. The silence of the apartment rushes back in, but it's different now. It's heavier. It's filled with the ghosts of who she might have been. The comparison trap on her phone showed her all the lives she isn't living. This phone call just confirmed why. She is trapped by an identity that was given to her, a gift she can't return, a script she is forced to read day after day until the story and her life is over. The silence of their evenings has a texture. It's thick, heavy, and predictable. It's the sound of a life that has been successfully anesthetized. They sit in their respective zones of comfort, Liam on the couch with his spreadsheets, Evelyn in the armchair with her thoughts. The routine is a fortress. It keeps the world out, but it also keeps them in. Tonight, a small, reckless impulse rises in Evelyn, a tiny act of defiance against the crushing sameness. She thinks of the secret, vibrant garden designs on her laptop, the ones she hides like a shameful secret. She wants to see color. She wants to see something that isn't a beige wall or a blue screen. What if we went away? The question hangs in the air, a fragile foreign object. Just for the weekend, we could drive to the coast, see the ocean. It's a small, manageable change. It's not, I'm quitting my job to become a landscape architect. It's not, I'm suffocating and our relationship is a void. It's just a weekend. But in her internal landscape, it is a test. It's a small hammer chipping at the wall. She is asking for a single, imperfect step. She is testing the foundations of the prison. She waits, her body tense, bracing for the answer she already knows is coming. Liam doesn't look up. His fingers pause on the keyboard. He squints at his screen as if her question were an annoying pop-up ad. The coast, this weekend? He sighs, a sound of profound inconvenience. Evie, the market's volatile. I'm trying to rebalance these portfolios before Monday. He finally turns to her, and his expression isn't angry. It's worse. It's baffled. We're trying to save. A weekend at the coast is just an unnecessary expense. We're fine here. We have our routine. He says routine like a priest says prayer. It is the sacred, untouchable thing that keeps them safe. He turns back to his screen. The conversation is over. She deflates. It's a slow, quiet sinking. The mismatched anchor has done his job. He has held the ship fast in the stagnant harbor, and in that moment, all the other voices join his. The family script whispers, "He's right, Evie. He's stable. He's sensible. Don't be difficult." But the loudest voice, the one that seals her fate, is the paralysis by perfectionism. It's the fourth and perhaps most insidious layer of her pain. It's the voice that says, "See? You can't even successfully plan a weekend trip. How in God's name did you think you could redesign your entire life?" Her failure to change the small thing becomes ironclad proof that she is incapable of changing the big thing. We have to understand what her perfectionism truly is. It is not, as it seems, a high standard. It is not the drive of an artist seeking greatness. Her secret garden designs, which she reworks for months, are not acts of creation. They are acts of avoidance. The paralysis by perfectionism is the most brilliant defense mechanism the fear-driven ego ever invented. It sets a standard, a perfect new life, a perfect business plan, a perfect escape, that is so impossibly high, so flawless, and so massive that it can never be achieved. And because it can't be achieved, you are given the perfect excuse to never start. This paralysis is her primary tormentor. It's the all-or-nothing thinking that keeps her trapped in nothing. She dreams of redesigning a city park, so she is incapable of planting a single flower box. She wants a perfect relationship, so she is paralyzed in her imperfect one. This is the great lie of perfectionism. It masquerades as ambition, but it is, at its core, pure, unadulterated terror. It is the deep, profound fear of being judged, of failing, of looking ridiculous, of being that woman who left a stable job to go draw dirt, as Liam once called it. The philosopher Seneca the Younger wrote about this 2,000 years ago. He said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This is the textbook definition of Evelyn's paralysis. She is suffering from catastrophes that exist only in her imagination. The imagined failure of her new life, the imagined judgment of her parents, the imagined poverty. Her perfect plan is a monster she has created to scare herself into staying in the cage. It is always safer to suffer the known, predictable, soul-crushing void than to risk the unknown, terrifying, and possibly catastrophic failure of an imperfect escape. Liam is the codependent of this paralysis. He is the high priest of her fear. His love of the routine, his dismissal of her hobby, his practicality, it all validates her paralysis. It gives her permission to stay stuck. Their relationship is not peace, it is a mutually agreed-upon armistice. It is a tacit contract signed in fear, where neither party will push the other to do anything that might risk the fragile, comfortable, and soul-killing balance of their shared stagnation. He anchors her, and in return she doesn't rock his boat. The ancient Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu taught that the antidote to this kind of rigid paralysis is Wu Wei. It is often translated as non-action, but it really means effortless action, or more simply, imperfect action. It is the flow of water. Water does not map out a perfect path down the mountain. It simply flows, finding the path of least resistance, moving around the obstacles, always moving forward. Evelyn is the opposite. She is a block of ice, frozen, demanding the mountain move for her. Because her perfectionism forbids her from taking the small, messy, imperfect step, she is forced to take no step at all. It happens on a Tuesday. The failure is small, almost invisible, which is why it's so devastating. The child she cares for, a boy named Mason, has a tantrum. It's a standard, ear-splitting, floor-pounding tantrum, the kind she has managed 1,000 times. But this time the parents are home. They don't yell. They do something far worse. They stand in the doorway observing. The mother, in her cashmere lounge set, waits until the screaming subsides and says, "We were hoping the new calm-down protocol would be fully implemented by now, Evelyn." His grandmother is starting to notice the regression. That's all. A quiet, clinical execution. Regression. Implemented. She is a piece of software that has bugged out. She finishes the day, her premium nanny mask locked in place, but inside the family script is playing at full volume. A gift with kids, a natural. The words are a bitter joke. She is failing at the one thing she was told was her gift. The identity foreclosure is cracking, and the existential void beneath it is vast. She drives home, not angry, not sad, but with a desperate, low-grade need for a single human data point to the contrary, a hand to hold, an anchor that isn't a dead weight. She just wants to hear, "Tough day? You're okay." That is all. She walks into the apartment. The scene is a perfect replica of every other night. Liam, the digital ghost, is on the couch, his face awash in the blue light of his spreadsheet. He is the mismatched anchor, holding his position. She stands in the entrance, waiting to be seen. "Hey," she says, her voice sounding small. "Rough day at work?" He nods, eyes on the screen. Gables again." Yeah, she says, walking further into the room, practically willing him to turn his head. They're just a lot. He taps his keyboard, his focus unbroken. Well, the paycheck's good. That's the main thing, right? And there it is. The convergence, the dual chaos. The small professional failure collides with the profound interpersonal void, and in that collision, something in her breaks. It's not a loud snap. It's a quiet, final surrender. This is the fifth antagonist, the final boss of the first act, learned helplessness. It is the deep, cellular belief, born from repeated, validated failure, that no action she takes will ever matter. It is the end state of all her other pains. The void asked, why bother? The identity foreclosure said, you can't. The perfectionism paralysis said, don't even try. And now, this moment, this final, quiet rejection, provides the last piece of evidence. The case is closed. The verdict is in. This is what Albert Camus called philosophical suicide. It is not the act of ending a life. It is the act of ending the struggle. It is the moment the human mind looks at the crushing, absurd routine, the sheer pointlessness of the cycle, and says, I accept. I will stop fighting. It is the surrender of the spirit. She slumps into the armchair, the one he is not using. The apathy that settles on her is total. She is no longer a person. She is a function that has failed, and a roommate that is silent. The is this it is no longer a question. It is a statement of fact. This is it. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus built his entire framework for mental freedom on one simple, brutal distinction: understanding what is in our control versus what is not. In our control, our judgments, our responses, our choices. Not in our control, everything else. The opinions of the Gables, the emotional availability of Liam, the family script she was handed. Evelyn's tragedy is that she has been trying to control the uncontrollable, and she has concluded that because she has failed, she is powerless. She has not even once tried to exercise power over the one thing she actually owns, her own mind. Because she has failed to change her unchangeable job and failed to connect with her disconnected partner, she has internalized the ultimate lie, that she is the failure. This is the mechanism of learned helplessness. The trap is sprung, the mind is locked. She sits in the dark, a ghost in her own living room next to another ghost, and the quiet is absolute. When you are at the bottom of the well, and the one person at the top doesn't even notice you're gone, where does the help come from? It is 3 in the morning. The apartment is a morgue. This is the absolute zero point, the bottom of the well she reached hours ago. The profound, suffocating apathy of learned helplessness has left her hollowed out, a walking shell in a silent home. She sits in the dark, the blue-white light of her phone screen casting a ghostly pall on her face. She is not scrolling. She is just staring. But then, a flicker. A small, almost imperceptible twitch. It's an impulse so buried, so shamed, that it only dares to show itself in these desolate pre-dawn hours when the rest of the world is dead and her persona is too exhausted to stand guard. On autopilot, her body moves. She slips off the couch and goes to her laptop. It is an act of pure rebellion. She opens it. She types in a long, complex password, not for her bank, not for her email. She navigates to a single, hidden, encrypted folder. The folder is named Assets. She clicks, and the void outside her is suddenly, instantly filled by the world inside her. The screen floods with color, with life, with structure. This is her hidden passion, and it is not a hobby. It is a discipline. It is her unlived life. The folder contains hundreds of files. These are not just pictures of flowers. They are complex, multi-layered blueprints for public parks. They are 3D rendered models of rooftop irrigation systems. They are botanical spreadsheets, cross-referencing soil acidity with sunlight exposure. They are theses on biophilic design and the psychology of crowd flow. She is not a gardener. She is a clandestine landscape architect. Her mind doesn't just want to plant a rose. It wants to re-engineer the way a city breathes. As she works, her entire physiology changes. The apathy evaporates. Her breathing deepens. Her eyes, which were dull and vacant, become sharp, focused, and alive. She is in a state of pure, unadulterated flow. The great philosopher of the mind, Carl Gustav Jung, had a name for this. He called it the shadow. For Jung, the shadow is not an evil, dark place. It is simply the part of ourselves that we repress. It is all the potential we were told was unacceptable, silly, or weird. It is the unlived gold we are forced to bury. Evelyn's persona, the good, stable, responsible nanny, is the mask she wears for the world. This folder, this secret architect, is her self. And Jung's great warning was this: when you repress the shadow, when you bury your true self, it doesn't die. It turns toxic. It seeps into your life as anxiety, as resentment, as a profound, numbing, existential void. This secret folder, this unlived life, is what the mythologist Joseph Campbell called the call to adventure. It is the knock on the door, the white rabbit, the whispered invitation to a world beyond the grey anesthetic reality she inhabits. It is the part of her that knows she is more than a logistics manager for a toddler. It is her soul in digital form, offering her an escape. But she has refused the call every single day for a decade. Why? Why would she hide the one thing that makes her feel alive? Because the herd has told her to. The memory surface is sharp and cold. It was a year ago. She had, in a moment of rare vulnerability, tried to share this. She had shown Liam a complex design for a community garden. She had tried to explain her idea about desire lines and social cohesion zones. He had looked at it, his face a mask of loving, dismissive confusion. "It's a lot of bushes, Evie," he'd said, patting her on the back. "It's a weird hobby, but it's cute. Drawing dirt." That was it. A weird hobby. The casual, unintended cruelty of that one word, hobby, was a gunshot. It was the mismatched anchor doing his job, pulling her back from the deep ocean of her passion into the shallow, sensible harbor of their life. That is the moment the shame was born. The family script told her she was a nanny. The mismatched anchor told her this other thing, this real thing, was just drawing dirt. The herd had spoken. Her gold was not gold. It was just a strange, embarrassing pile of mud. So she locked it away. She put her true self in a password-protected prison, and now she is ashamed of the prisoner. She is ashamed of the one part of her that is not a fraud. She is terrified of being the weird girl who draws dirt. A sound from the bedroom. Liam, he is stirring. He coughs, rolls over. The effect on her is electric, a jolt of pure panic. Her hands fly to the keyboard. Click. The laptop snaps shut. The screen goes black. The light in her eyes is extinguished. The architect is gone. Evelyn, the nanny, the ghost, is back. She sits in the dark, her heart pounding, flooded with a hot, sharp shame. She was almost caught. Not caught being a criminal. Not caught being unfaithful. She was almost caught being herself. The question that hangs in the dark is the one that will define the rest of in her life. Why is the only thing that makes her feel whole the one thing she is terrified of anyone ever seeing? This is not Evelyn's world. This is a different world entirely. We are in a glass-walled conference room high above the city. The light is bright, white, and unforgiving. This is the world of Senora Alvarez. She is a systems consultant, a mid-level manager, which are titles that, like all titles, obscure the truth. What she truly is a high priestess of pure, unadulterated function. She sits at a long, polished table, a hawk observing a flock of nervous pigeons. A city planner is at the front of the room, fumbling through a presentation. He is talking about a failing public park, a community desert, as he calls it. He uses words like vibe, spirit, and disconnection. Senora Alvarez lets him finish. She looks down at the glossy, expensive report in front of him, filled with emotional language. She doesn't look at him. She looks at the data. She taps her pen on a single spreadsheet. "Mr. Henderson," she says, her voice not loud, but it cuts through the room like a scalpel. "I have read your report. It is full of feelings, but you have failed to identify the core problem." The man flushes. "The problem is the feeling of the space, She holds up a hand, a single sharp gesture that stops him cold. "The problem is that you don't know what this asset is. This is the moment. This is the philosophical Chekhov's gun that will in time save Evelyn's life. Alvarez leans forward, and her logic is a physical force. Do not ever tell me how you feel about an asset. Tell me its function, and tell me why it is not being deployed. She taps the spreadsheet again. This park's function is to move large groups of people from point A, the transit hub, to point B, the commercial center, while providing adequate shade and rest. It is failing because the pathways are inefficient and the seating is non-existent. It is a systems failure, not a spiritual one. Fix the system. The feelings will follow. This is a mind that has no room for an existential void. Senor Alvarez does not wake up and ask, "Is this it?" She wakes up and asks, "What is the day's primary function?" This is the living, breathing embodiment of a philosophy that has been lost in our world of emotional chaos. This is the practical application of the Stoic emperor, Marcus Aurelius. He wrote relentlessly in his private journal, "What is your nature? What is your function?" He taught himself to strip away all external drama, all feelings, all the vibe, and see only the essential. He saw his role as emperor not as a privilege, but as a function to be executed for the good of the Roman system. Senor Alvarez is a modern Stoic. She is not cruel, she is simply efficient. She sees the world not as a collection of struggling, feeling, suffering individuals, but as a single, massive system. And in her world, purpose is not a magical, mystical feeling you must find by looking under a rock in a distant land. Purpose, to Senor Alvarez, is a verb. It is the efficient execution of your primary function. Her peace, and she is profoundly peaceful, comes not from self-love. It comes from self-deployment. She is at peace because she is used. She is a perfectly calibrated tool, doing exactly what she was built to do. This is the mind of Plato's philosopher king, or in this case our philosopher manager. Plato dreamed of a city, a republic, that would be ruled not by emotional, populist or fearful men, but by pure reason. He believed that reason was the highest virtue, the divine part of the human, and that emotion was the chaotic animal part that must be ruled by reason. Senor Alvarez is a Platonic guardian. She is guarding the system from the chaos of human feelings. She sees the city planner's passionate, incoherent plea for community spirit as a form of corruption. It is data, yes, but it is low-priority data. The highest priority is always and only the function. And here is the contrast. Here is the chasm that separates these two women. Evelyn is drowning in the void. She is a raw nerve of feeling. Her entire existence is defined by a lack of meaning, a lack of connection, a deep and profound emptiness. She is all feeling and no function. She is, in Alvarez's terms, an undeployed asset. She is a high-powered, complex piece of machinery with an incredible, unique design. And she is being used, as she herself knows, to sterilize bottles and wipe up spills. Her system is in open revolt. Evelyn is suffering from an identity foreclosure that has chained her to a low-level function. Senor Alvarez is a woman whose identity is her high-level function. They are the mirror opposites of each other, and they are on a collision course. What will happen when the woman drowning in the chaos of feeling meets the woman who lives in the sterile, perfect, logical world of function? What happens when the poet meets the engineer? This is the great question, and the answer will be the spark that burns Evelyn's entire prison to the ground. This is the absolute flaw. This is the grey, gravel-strewn bottom of the well. We are in a playground desert, a flat, ugly expanse of faded plastic structures and dyed red wood chips. It is a place devoid of life, a monument to a city budget's line item. Evelyn is here, an automaton on duty. She is pushing a swing. The click-clack of the metal chain is the metronome of her learned helplessness. This is her life, post-surrender. It's the day after the small, quiet failure at her job, the day after the non-reaction from Liam. She is hollow. She is a shell, performing the absolute basic requirements of her function. She looks at the park, and her mind, the secret dormant part of her, registers the sheer offensive stupidity of its design. The playground equipment is clustered in the center, baking in the full afternoon sun. The benches, the only benches, are 50 yards away, huddled under a small patch of trees. This has created a bifurcated, dysfunctional system. The children are in the sun-baked hell of the play area. The parents and nannies are in the shade, shouting instructions across a vast, dead lawn. The concrete paths laid out in rigid, useless squares are ignored. Everyone cuts across the grass, creating muddy desire lines that the park's designer had been too arrogant or too lazy to see. The park is fighting its users. It is a physical manifestation of a broken system, and Evelyn, even in her catatonic state, feels it as a low-grade personal insult. She is vaguely aware of another figure in the park, a woman in a dark, severe pantsuit, standing near the useless concrete path. She looks profoundly out of place. She is not a mother. She is not a nanny. She has a clipboard. She is staring at the flow of people, the parents shouting, the kids cutting through the mud, with a look of pure clinical disgust. She is not frustrated. She is offended. She is observing a system that is failing, and it is a moral affront to her. This is the moment. The ancient philosopher Heraclitus said that all things are born of conflict and necessity. He taught that change is not born from gentle agreement. It is born from strife. It is born from the collision of two opposing forces. In this sterile, dysfunctional park, two such forces are about to collide. On one side, Evelyn, the ghost of pure, repressed, chaotic feeling, a person so lost in the void she has ceased to exist. On the other, Senora Alvarez, the avatar of pure deployed logical function. The universe is holding a lit match to a very short, very dry fuse. Senora Alvarez sighs. It is a sharp, impatient sound. She mutters to herself, but the wind carries it. It's a total systems failure. The asset is non-performing. And then, louder to no one at all, this park is a failure. That word, failure. It's the same word that was leveraged against her by the Gables. It's the core of her identity foreclosure. It's the verdict that has defined her entire life. And in this moment, something snaps. It is not a choice. It is not an act of courage. It is a geyser. It is a decade of repressed function, the secret architect who lives in the encrypted folder, bursting through the cracked foundation of her despair. Of course it's a failure, Evelyn hears a voice say. It's her own, it's sharp, it's cold, and it's a voice she has not heard in years. She has stopped pushing the swing. She is pointing. The flow is wrong. You're forcing perpendicular foot traffic against the main desire line from the transit stop. The seating is oriented away from the play area, and the play area itself has zero solar mitigation, so it's unusable after 1 p.m. You've separated the zones of activity, which forces the guardians to shout, destroying the peace. It's not a park, it's a container, and it was designed by someone who hates people. The words are out. They hang in the air, sharp and clear. The self has just performed a violent public hijacking of the persona. Senora Alvarez does not move. She does not look shocked. She does not look offended. She just stops. She slowly turns her head, and her eyes lock onto Evelyn. She sees her. Not the nanny uniform. Not the bag of baby wipes on her shoulder. She looks at Evelyn as if she has just pulled a pin on a grenade. Her gaze is not judgmental. It is evaluative. She looks at Evelyn up and down, and then she asks the single pattern-breaking question that will change the course of her entire life. Who are you? This is the moment. This is what the psychologist Carl Jung called synchronicity. This is not a random accident. It is a meaningful coincidence. It is the external world, the random appearance of this specific woman in this specific park at this specific moment, aligning perfectly with an internal psychic event. Evelyn's total surrender, her hitting the absolute bottom, finally created a vacuum, and the universe, in its strange systemic wisdom, has just sent the only person who could fill it. It did not send a therapist, it did not send a priest, it sent an engineer. Evelyn is left standing there, breathless, the echo of her own strange, powerful voice still in her ears. The question, "Who are you?" is a cosmic, terrifying joke. She is the premium nanny. She is the good daughter. She is the stable companion. She is a fraud. She is a void. And she is, in this one bizarre, terrifying moment, a voice of pure, unadulterated function. Her outburst, her moment of conflict, was the most honest, intelligent, and alive thing she has done in years, and she has absolutely no idea what happens next. The bottle steamer hisses, the sound of the plastic lid clicking into place, the sterile white-on-white of the kitchen. Evelyn is back in her routine, her body on autopilot, but her mind is a million miles away. It is replaying those 30 seconds in the park, over and over. It's not the content of what she said, the explosion of jargon about desire lines and solar mitigation that haunts her. It's the echo of that question. Who are you? It wasn't an insult. It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't even a casual inquiry. It was an appraisal. Senora Alvarez had looked at her not as a human being, but as a piece of data she could not classify. She had been seen. For one brief, terrifying moment, she was not the nanny. She was not a companion. She was simply a mind. This is the Socratic sting. This is the gadfly that the great philosopher of Athens, Socrates, claimed to be. His entire purpose was to be that buzzing, annoying insect that stings the lazy, sleeping horse of a state into wakefulness. He did it by asking disruptive questions. What is justice? What is virtue? What is good? Senora Alvarez, the systems analyst, had become an accidental Socratic gadfly. She had stung Evelyn with a single, logical question, and now Evelyn was, for the first time, painfully awake. She was being forced against her will to live what Socrates demanded, the examined life. And the core, devastating truth he uncovered was this: the unexamined life, the life of routine and assumption, is not worth living. That question, who are you, became a virus. It was a piece of malicious code inserted into her operating system, and it was now running in the background, consuming all her processing power. It was cross-referencing everything. When the child, Mason, had a small victory, her persona felt pride. But the virus whispered, "Is this who you are? A person who is proud of someone else's achievement?" When her mother called, repeating the family script about her gift, the virus whispered, "Is this the identity you choose or the one you were assigned?" The existential void she had lived with for years was a passive, cold, numbing sensation. This was different. This was an active, hot, and intelligent pain. It was a splinter in her mind, and it was demanding to be removed. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti spoke of this. He taught that all true change, all freedom, is born from the absolute negation of the known. We are, he said, prisoners of the known. Our traditions, our beliefs, our identities. I am a nanny. I am a good daughter. I am in a stable relationship. These were Evelyn's knowns. They were the bars of her cage. Senora Alvarez's question and the bizarre, powerful outburst that preceded it had just given her a glimpse of a world outside the known. It suggested that I am a nanny was not a permanent, unchangeable fact. It was a hypothesis, and it was a hypothesis that was suddenly, rapidly, failing to hold up to the new, disruptive data. The disturbance followed her home. The apartment, her roommate syndrome, her mismatched anchor, it was all the same. Liam was on the couch, lost in his spreadsheets, the digital ghost. But she was different. Before, this scene filled her with a passive, cold loneliness. Now it filled her with a hot, buzzing impatience. He was so comfortable. He was so unexamined. He was the living embodiment of the known. He was the anchor, and she was, for the first time, feeling the pull of the open ocean. The seed of doubt planted in the gravel of that ugly park was starting to grow. It was pushing up through the concrete of her apathy. She couldn't sleep. The learned helplessness that had defined her was a state of paralysis. But a person in a state of obsession cannot be paralyzed. The obsession is its own engine. The question, who are you, demanded an answer. And the only person on the planet who might understand the question was the one who had asked it. She slipped out of bed. Liam was asleep. She went to her laptop. This was not the furtive, shameful opening of her assets folder. This was not her hidden passion. This was an act of investigation. She opened a web browser. Her fingers, which had trembled with weakness in the kitchen, were now steady. They were driven by function. She didn't know the name. She typed, City Systems Consultant Park Assessment. Woman Pantsuit Clipboard Park. The search results were useless. She paused. She closed her eyes. She replayed the scene. The voice, the logic. Systems failure. Asset non-performing. She typed, Senra Alvarez, City of Systems Efficiency. The results were immediate. Not a social media profile, something far more terrifying and far more appealing. A cold, professional city government staff page. And from there a link to a private consultancy, Alvarez Systems Analytics. The website was brutalist, minimalist, all grey, black and sharp, functional lines. The tagline was printed under the name, We don't analyze feelings, we optimize function. There she was, a black and white, severe, intelligent headshot. The woman from the park. The woman who saw the world not as a collection of chaotic feelings, but as a system to be optimized. The woman who had looked at Evelyn's soul-crushing void and diagnosed it in 30 seconds as a design flaw. Evelyn's hand hovered over the contact link. This was the real test. The family script, the mismatched anchor, the perfectionism paralysis, all the ghosts of her known identity were screaming at her. She will laugh at you, she'll think you're a lunatic, you are a nanny. Who do you think you are? But the Socratic sting was stronger. The unexamined life was no longer an option. She had found the door. The cursor blinks, a single vertical pulsing line. It is the only thing moving in the dark, silent apartment. It pulses on the contact form of the Alvarez Systems Analytics website. A perfect digital representation of a void. It is a question mark. An open door. A cliff edge. Evelyn's hand is on the mouse, but she isn't moving. She is frozen, a perfect statue of her perfectionism paralysis. The inner critic, which has been so quiet, is suddenly wide awake. It is screaming, its voice a perfect blend of her mother's disappointment and her companion's baffled condescension. "What are you doing?" it hisses. "She's a consultant. You're a nanny. This is insane. You're going to wake him up. You're going to get laughed at. Close the laptop." This is the sound of the known identity, the persona fighting for its life. It is the herd, the family script, the entire system of social gravity pulling her back down to the safe, stable, and predictable ground. It knows, on a primal level, that this single stupid email is an act of treason, that it is a declaration of war against the life everyone, including herself, has agreed she is supposed to live. She is not just a nanny, she is a premium nanny. She is not just in a relationship, she is in a stable one. She is not just a daughter, she is the good one. And this act, this insane, middle-of-the-night plea to a stranger, threatens to burn that entire, carefully constructed identity to the ground. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus was obsessed with a single liberating idea. He taught that the path to freedom is not in changing the world, but in changing your mind about the world. And the first step is to draw a ruthless, unforgiving line between what you can control and what you cannot. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control if another person loves you. You cannot, Evelyn, control what Senora Alvarez will think of you. She might think you are a lunatic. She might delete the email. She might, as your inner critic so helpfully suggests, laugh at you. All of that is external. It is, in the Stoic sense, not your problem. What can you control? The blinking cursor, the movement of your own fingers, the thoughts you choose to empower, the decision to act, or the decision to remain paralyzed. This is the only part of the universe you actually own, this small, terrifying circle of immediate choice. And this is the true battle of her life. Not the tantrum-throwing child, not the emotionally absent companion. The battle is here, in the dark, with a blinking line. It is the war between a lifetime of learned helplessness and a single fragile spark of will. It is the revolt the philosopher Albert Camus spoke of. It is the human, in the face of an absurd, meaningless existence, choosing to act anyway. Her fingers move. They are clumsy, they are shaking. She types, she deletes, she types again. The words are not elegant, they are not perfect. They are the raw, unedited data of her desperation. "Dear Senora Alvarez," she begins. She pauses. "What a joke," she continues. "You don't know me, I was in the park today, the one with the bad pathways." She cringes, deleting it. Too familiar. She tries again. "To the attention of Senora Alvarez, I am writing in reference to your public assessment of the... Too formal, too stupid. She deletes everything. Her head is in her hands. She is failing. The perfectionism paralysis is winning. But then the memory of Alvarez's voice, the logic. Function. System. Deploy. She takes a breath. She stops trying to be perfect. She stops trying to be a good writer. She just reports the data. She puts her fingers back on the keys, and she lets the secret architect type. Senora Alvarez, we spoke briefly at the park today. I'm the nanny who commented on the desire lines. No apology, just the fact. I saw your website. Your tagline is, "We optimize function." I have a question. What do you do when the system that isn't functioning is a person? She stops. Her heart is a cold, hard knot in her chest. She types one more sentence, the most terrifying, honest, and imperfect sentence of her life. I think I am suffering from function retention. That's it. She has named it. She has used the enemy's language. She has taken her entire existential void, her identity foreclosure, all her pain, and she has translated it into the only language this woman might understand. It is a desperate, vulnerable, and profoundly awkward act. This is what the great Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu meant. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This is the step. It is not a heroic leap. It is a clumsy, terrified stumble in the dark. It is the most courageous and the most ridiculous thing she has ever done. Her hand, shaking, moves to the mouse. The cursor hovers over the send button. This is the moment. The inner critic is in a full-blown panic. Don't. 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 You are a fool. You are a child. You are drawing dirt. She closes her eyes. She focuses on the one thing she can control. She focuses on the single downward pressure of her index finger. She clicks. The page reloads. Thank you. Your message has been sent. It is gone. The email is gone, fired into the void. And now there is only silence. The silence of the apartment, the silence of the sleeping companion, the silence of the city. But it is a new kind of silence. It is not the cold, dead, passive silence of apathy. It is a hot, vibrant, screaming silence. The silence of pure, agonizing suspense. She has stepped out of the playpen. Will the stranger reject her, or will she agree to teach? The coffee shop is not warm or cozy. It is an extension of Senora Alvarez's website, all poured concrete, black steel, and hard, functional lines. It is a place for transactions, not for comfort. Evelyn is a wreck. She is a raw nerve exposed in a sterile environment. She hasn't slept. She is vibrating with shame, convinced this is the most idiotic, impulsive thing she has ever done. Senora Alvarez arrives exactly on time, not a minute before or after. She does not order a complicated, milky drink. She gets a black coffee. She sits down. She does not engage in small talk. She does not ask Evelyn how she is. She gets, as is her nature, directly to the function. Function retention. She says the words from the email, her voice a flat diagnostic instrument. It's an interesting term, an accurate one. We use it in systems management. Evelyn just stares, her throat dry, her inner critic screaming that she should run. Alvarez takes a sip of her coffee. A system has many components, she says, as if she is in her glass conference room. Every component has a primary function. A high-level asset, say, a central processor, has a high-level function. If you use that processor only for a low-level function like, say, running the clock, the system doesn't just become inefficient. It becomes unstable. It creates a bottleneck. It generates noise. The system begins to fight itself. Evelyn's mind, which has been a swamp of vague, chaotic, and self-hating emotion, latches onto those words. Bottleneck. Instability. Noise. This is not a language of feeling. It is a language of physics. Alvarez is not a therapist. She is an engineer. And she is looking at Evelyn's soul as if it is a malfunctioning machine. And for the first time in Evelyn's life, the pain begins to make sense. The existential void she feels isn't a magical, spiritual curse. It isn't a moral failure for being ungrateful. It is system noise. It is the sound of a high-level component being misused, and the resulting friction is so loud, it is deafening. Alvarez leans in just an inch. You're not empty, Evelyn. You're retained. Your email was correct. You are a high-level asset being deployed for a low-level function. Your hidden passion, as you call it, your drawing dirt, is your primary design. You are an architect, a systems analyst yourself, but you are using that complex pattern-seeing brain to do one thing: sterilize bottles. The noise you're feeling, that's just the system's error log telling you there's a critical, fundamental design flaw. This is the click. It is not a gentle, warm, aha moment. It is the sound of a dislocated bone being violently snapped back into its socket. It is agonizing, it is shocking, and it is the first moment of true structural alignment she has felt in her entire adult life. This is the central lesson of Plato's allegory of the cave, translated into a brutal corporate dialect. For years, Evelyn has been a prisoner. She has been chained by the family script and anchored by her mismatched companion. She has been forced to stare at the wall of her domestic cave, watching the shadows flicker by. The shadows are named good nanny, stable daughter, sensible partner, and she has believed, with all her heart, that these shadows are the sum total of reality. She has accepted that the hollow, empty feeling is simply the nature of the cave. She has been a good, quiet, suffering prisoner. Sandra Alvarez is the philosopher who has walked out of the cave. She has seen the sun, the world of forms, the world of pure, unfiltered function. But she has not returned to the cave to offer pity. She has not come back to coddle the prisoners and tell them their shadows are valid. She has returned with a blueprint. She has come back to point at the chains, at the fire, at the shadow casters, and to state, with cold, irrefutable logic, you are in a cave. The reality you accept is a projection. Your pain is not a mystery. It is the simple, predictable result of your environment. This is the psychological engine that Carl Gustav Jung built his life's work on. He taught that our persona, the mask we wear for the world, the good nanny, is a necessary tool. But if that mask, that low-level function, is mistaken for the true self, the high-level component, the architect, the entire system will revolt. The self is not a feeling, it is a function. It is what we are for. And when that primary function is retained, repressed, and shoved into a dark, encrypted folder, it does not die. It turns toxic. It begins to generate noise. It creates the bottleneck. The existential void that has haunted Evelyn is the sound of her own, undeployed, high-level self screaming in that dark, forgotten folder. Evelyn leaves the coffee shop. Her hands are shaking. She is not cured. She is not happy. She does not have a new lease on life. She is terrified, but she is, for the first time, oriented. She finally has a map to her own pain. It is a cold, logical, and deeply impersonal systems diagram. The question is no longer the vague, hopeless cry of, "What is wrong with me?" The question is now the sharp, tactical, and engineering-based problem: how do I fix the bottleneck? She can see the prison bars. She can see the persona for the mask it is. She has at last seen her pattern. But as she walks out into the sunlight, a new, cold dread settles in. Seeing the trap is one thing. Breaking out of it is another. She walks into the Gables kitchen the next morning, but it's not the same person. The old Evelyn, the numb, hollow automaton, is gone. In her place is a new Evelyn, a conscious Evelyn. She is armed with a diagnosis. I am a high-level component. This is a low-level function. She has a name for the noise in her head. System bottleneck. She feels for the first time a sense of intellectual superiority over her surroundings. She is not a prisoner. She is a systems analyst, sent on an undercover mission to observe her own poorly designed life. The hiss of the bottle steamer is not the sound of her void. It is data. The family script is not a curse. It is a corrupt legacy code. This is the great dangerous illusion of the first insight. The new awareness feels like armor. It feels like a superpower. She believes that seeing the matrix is the same thing as being free from it. She makes the coffee, sterilizes the counters, and logs the child's sleep patterns. but she does it with a sense of detached, almost amused observation. She thinks, "This is not me. This is the persona. I am the architect, the self, and I am simply watching this mask perform its duties." She has in her mind already escaped. She is a ghost in her own machine, and she is waiting for the right moment to simply float away, having proven she is no longer part of the mechanism. The test comes at 2:15 p.m. The child mason is down for his nap. Mrs. Gable, a woman who moves with the silent predatory efficiency of a high-end shark, materializes in the kitchen. "Evelyn," she says, not looking up from her phone, "just a heads up. We've decided to recalibrate Mason's enrichment targets. We're sunsetting the free play module and doubling down on Mandarin data entry." She holds up a new, complex-looking chart. "I'll need you to have his metrics logged by 5 p.m. and make sure they align with the new projections. We need to see better data." This is it. This is the moment for the high-level component to reject the absurd low-level input. The conscious Evelyn, the architect, the analyst, has 1,000 replies. She wants to say your enrichment targets are a data-driven manifestation of your own anxiety. She wants to say, "I am a systems analyst, and your system is fundamentally broken." She wants to stand up as her true self and state that her primary function is not data entry for a toddler's vocabulary. She opens her mouth, and what comes out, in a voice that is horrifyingly, sickeningly familiar, is the voice of the persona. "Of course, Mrs. Gable, recalibrating. I'll get the metrics aligned by 5. The words just happen. They fall out of her, a perfect pre-programmed script. Mrs. Gable nods, satisfied, and glides away. Evelyn is left alone in the sterile white kitchen, and the shame that washes over her is a new, exotic, and infinitely more painful element than the old grey void. Before, she was just numb. Now she is a coward. She is the prisoner who was handed a map, who saw the open door, who described the mechanics of the lock in perfect analytical detail, and then sat right back down in her cell and thanked the guard. The persona, she just learned, is not a mask she can just decide to take off. The mask is the face. It has its own muscle memory. It has its own voice. And it is 1,000 times stronger than her one, new, fragile idea. We see in this moment why she failed. And it's not because she is weak. It is because awareness alone is useless. It is the great con of the self-help world, the belief that insight equals transformation. It does not. The Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger knew this. He wrote endlessly about the difficulty of breaking old habits. He knew that a lifetime of programming cannot be erased by a single logical insight. That identity foreclosure is not just a thought. It is a neurological pathway. It is a groove carved deep into the brain by years of repetition. Her new thought, "I am an architect," is a tiny, delicate seedling. The old habit, "I am the nanny," is a thick, muddy, 1,000-ton carriage rut, and the wheels will slide back in. This is the chasm between consciousness and action. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche understood this gap. He knew that consciousness, the knowing, is the easy part. What is rare, what is divine, is Wille zur Macht, the will to power, not power over others. The raw animal unthinking force needed to exert power over oneself. The will to rip the carriage wheels out of the old familiar rut and carve a new, painful, and inefficient path through the wilderness. Evelyn failed because she came into a battle of will armed only with a thought. She lacked the muscle to execute her own liberation. And, as Aristotle taught, we are what we repeatedly do. Our character is the sum of our habits. Evelyn has a lifetime of practicing the habit of compliance, of being the good girl, of fulfilling the family script. She has zero practice in the habit of being her true self. She stands at the counter, her hands shaking not with fear, but with a new, cold, and exquisitely useful rage. The old pain was a fog. This new pain is a focused beam of light. The awareness didn't free her. It just turned the lights on so she could finally see in humiliating perfect detail the bars of her cage and the hand, her own hand, that was holding the door shut. The failure was a cold, sharp stone in her gut. The shame from her moment of cowardice in the Gables kitchen was so much more potent than the old, grey numbness. The numbness was a passive state. This new feeling was an active failure. She had been given the map, she had seen the bars, and she had remained in the cell. The system error she was feeling was no longer a vague bottleneck. It was a specific, humiliating compliance. Her persona was not a mask she could simply drop. It was a deep, powerful, automated script, and her self was just a weak, terrified spectator. This realization forced her hand. She couldn't live in this new state of conscious failure. It was the most exquisite torture. She sent the email. It was short, and it was not a plea for help. It was a request for data. Senora Alvarez, I attempted to disengage from the low-level function and failed. The legacy programming overrode the new insight. I am requesting clarification on the deployment protocol. E. She was asking an engineer how to debug her own code. The reply came 3 hours later. Coffee, 8 a.m., same location. This was not a therapy session. This was a technical review. When Evelyn sat down, she didn't bring her feelings. She brought her problem. I tried, she said, her voice low and tight. I saw the pattern, and I failed. I'm just a coward. The programming is too strong. Senator Alvarez looked at her, not with sympathy, but with a familiar, impatient systems analyst focus. She took a sip of her black coffee. Of course you failed, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Your analysis is correct, but your target is wrong. Evelyn blinked. What target? Alvarez set her cup down, the clack of ceramic on steel echoing in the sterile cafe. You are still fighting the cage. You are still putting all your energy into analyzing the bars, the nanny job, the annoying parents, the family script. You're trying to escape a negative. That is not a functional objective. It's a reactive one. You are trying to run from something. You will never succeed. This was the second great click. It was more profound and more terrifying than the first. I don't understand, Evelyn whispered. You are still, Alvarez said, making this about you. Your pain, your void, your prison. The existential void you are suffering from is a black hole. It is the end state of pure, profound self-absorption. You cannot fight a black hole by staring into it. You cannot fix a void. You can only escape it by aiming your ship at a different star. You are failing because you are still focused on yourself. You are trying to find yourself. You are trying to save yourself. And that is the very function that is keeping you trapped. Evelyn's mind reeled. This was the core of it. All her pain, her comparison trap, her inner critic. It was all a symptom of a mind turned inward, of a system that was only analyzing itself. So what do I do? She asked. Alvarez leaned forward, her voice dropping to a low, intensely functional pitch. You are never going to find purpose, because purpose is not a feeling. It is not a mystical prize you find after a long, self-obsessed journey. That is a lie. Purpose is a verb. It is not a thing, it is a function. It is the application of a unique high-level skill set to solve a specific external problem. The cure for "is this it?" is not to find yourself. It is to implant yourself. This was the lesson. This was the entire map. The logic was as brutal as it was liberating. The cure for the void, the cure for the black hole of self-focus, was other focus. It was service. Stop analyzing your prison, Alvarez said, her gaze unwavering. It's a waste of processing power. Your legacy programming is strong because you are giving it an enemy to fight. Stop fighting it. Let it run in the background. Who cares? Your real work is to find a problem that isn't you and deploy your actual function to solve it. Stop trying to escape the nanny job. Go implant the architect. Go build something. This, the narrator explains, is the great secular translation of the concept known as ikigai. It is a Japanese word that means a reason for being. It is the ultimate antidote to the void. But it is not a feeling, just as Alvarez said. It is a location. It is the intersection of 4 roads. What you love, your hidden passion, the architect. What you are good at, your skill, the designs. What the world needs, the external problem to be solved. And what you can be paid for, the function deployed. Alvarez was giving Evelyn the map to this intersection. She was telling her to stop focusing on what she loved and start focusing on what the world needs. It's the same lesson from the great mythologist Joseph Campbell. His famous phrase, "the follow your bliss," has been tragically misunderstood. It was not a call to hedonism or self-indulgence. It was a call to follow that deep, internal, functional thread, your true self. Because that thread, if followed honestly, will inevitably lead you to a point of service. It will lead you to the place where your bliss is not just a hobby, but a tool, a function that can be deployed to solve a problem for your tribe. Alvarez, the ultimate pragmatist, had just given Evelyn the most profound spiritual advice of her life, translated into the language of a systems manual. Evelyn left the coffee shop with a new, terrifying and profoundly impersonal mission. Her objective was no longer fix myself. Her objective was implant my function. She was no longer a victim. She was a component. She had been given the map. Go deploy the architect. It was a clean, logical, actionable command. But as she stood on the grey, concrete sidewalk, the noise of the city washing over her, the question was no longer, who am I? The question was now a tactical and far more frightening one. Where? Where in her sterile, comfortable, empty life could she possibly find a problem to solve? The command was clear: implant the architect. The mission was no longer fix myself, it was deploy my function. For the first time, Evelyn comes home with a purpose. Liam is where he always is, a fixture in the landscape, the mismatched anchor on the couch, lost in his spreadsheets. But for the first time, she doesn't feel the pull of his gravity. She feels the pull of her own. She is an asset with a mission. She bypasses the living room, the roommate syndrome zone, and goes directly to her station. She opens her laptop. This is not the furtive, shameful act of a hobbyist. This is an engineer opening a toolbox. The assets folder is not a dream diary. It is a database of high-level solutions. She clicks, and her world floods with color and structure. The self, the architect, takes the controls. She scans her designs, not as art, but as systems. She is looking for the micro-value Senora Alvarez demanded, the small external problem she can solve. And then the old guard, the legacy programming, stages its counterattack. The perfectionism paralysis, her oldest, most trusted and most vicious antagonist, materializes. It is not a feeling, it is a voice. It is the inner critic, and it is terrified. It whispers, implant what exactly? This? It highlights a flaw in one of her 3D models. That irrigation gradient is inefficient. The math is wrong. It pulls up another file. This is amateur. This is derivative. This isn't ready. The new lesson, implant yourself, is a single logical command. But this voice, this paralysis, is a lifetime of emotional habit. It has the weight of 1,000 verifications. It has the authority of the family script. It has the validation of her entire life experience. You are not an architect, the voice says, its tone now cold and final. You are a nanny. You are a fraud. And if you show this to anyone, they will know. The new, fragile architect persona is freezing, its hands locked over the keyboard. The perfectionism paralysis is a brilliant defense. It is the ego's ultimate weapon. It prevents failure by preventing action. It is a fortress built of not yet and not good enough. And then the fortress gets its external reinforcement. Liam looks over. He sees her, not just scrolling, but working. He sees the look of intense, unfamiliar focus on her face. This is not the passive, tired Evelyn he is used to. This is a stranger. He is curious. What are you working on so hard, Evie? She hesitates. This is the test. The logic of Alvarez versus the history of her life. She tries to use the new language. It's a systems analysis. For a green space. He gets up, stretches and walks over, peering at her screen. He sees the complex rendering, the data points. He smiles. It is a loving, kind, gentle, and utterly devastating smile. Oh, he says, his voice full of that patronizing affection. The drawing dirt thing, it's a weird hobby, Evie, but it's cute. He kisses the top of her head. Why are you stressing out over a hobby? The game's on. That's all. It's a kill shot. It's the mismatched anchor dropping his full weight, not with malice, but with simple, profound, soul-crushing incomprehension. The new fragile architect persona shatters. The inner critic screams in triumph. See? I told you. You are a joke. You are a cute hobby. You are drawing dirt. She closes the laptop. The light goes out. The persona, the defeated, hollow nanny, is back in control. This is the great searing tragedy of Plato's allegory of the cave. The prisoner who escapes and sees the sun, the world of pure function and truth, as Señora Alvarez showed her, is now fundamentally changed, but she has to go back down into the cave to live. And in the cave, the other prisoners, like Liam, have only ever seen shadows. When she tries to explain the sun, her function, her system, they don't understand her. They think she is insane. They look at her with their common sense and say, "What sun? All I see is a wall. What function? All I see is a weird, cute hobby." They don't just reject her truth. They invalidate it. They make her the crazy one. This is why Liam's comment, and not her own internal logic, won the battle. It was the voice of the herd. It was the family script. It was the voice of the cave, confirming her deepest, most paralyzing fear, that her sun is just a delusion and the shadows are the only reality. The Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger wrote extensively about our relationship to the herd. He knew that the single greatest fear of most humans is not death. It is the judgment of the crowd. We are social animals, and we are terrified of being the fool. We would rather remain in a prison we all agree on than be free in a truth that makes us an outcast. Liam's loving, dismissive comment was the voice of the herd, confirming her perfectionism paralysis. The perfectionism isn't just an internal standard. It is the internalized fear of the herd's judgment. It is the voice that says, "Do not show them your sun, do not show them your dirt drawings, because they are not perfect enough to withstand their laughter." Her new lesson, "Implant yourself," was a single rational insight, but it just went to war against 1,000,000 years of social evolution, and it was validated by the one person whose opinion, in that moment, mattered most. The new lesson is not stronger than a lifetime of doubt. Not yet. This is the location. Not a grand park, not a promising new career. It is the back of her own apartment building. It is a sterile, dead, concrete courtyard, a 20 by 20 square of urban failure. It is a graveyard for cigarette butts, blown trash, and forgotten plastic chairs. It is an asset so non-performing it has negative value. And it is the only external problem she has. It is the only place in her entire suffocating life where she can, in this one, small, private way, implant the architect. This is not a project. This is a desperate, tactical maneuver. She is standing in the cold, grey afternoon light, and she has a notebook, a pencil, and a cheap yellow measuring tape. She unrolls the tape. The metal zzz-click sounds impossibly loud in the silence. She kneels. The cold of the concrete seeps through her jeans. An immediate, physical shock. This is not the clean, theoretical 3D rendered world of her assets folder. This is real. This is grit. This is the drawing dirt that Liam spoke of. She starts to measure, from wall to wall. She jots down a number. She finds a crack in the concrete where a single stubborn weed is growing. This is a data point. She pulls a small bag from her pocket and takes a sample of the soil from the crack. This is an imperfect action, a small, forward-moving, functional step. And then the perfectionism paralysis attacks. The inner critic doesn't whisper. It roars. Its voice is a perfect synthesis of her mother's common sense and Liam's patronizing logic. "What are you doing?" it demands. "You look like a lunatic. You are a premium nanny, kneeling in the trash collecting dirt. This is not a function. This is a mental breakdown. You don't have a degree. You don't have a plan. You are a fraud. And this is the moment you prove it to everyone." The voice is so loud, so rational, so right, that her hand freezes. The measuring tape retracts with a sharp metallic snap like a judgment. She looks up, and there he is. The universe, in its cruel, precise timing, provides the external validation for the inner critic. Liam, He is standing at their apartment window, 2 floors up. He is not angry, he is not confused, he is just watching. He has that look on his face, the one he had when she showed him her designs. That soft, baffled, slightly sad smile. The look of a kind man watching a person he loves do something inexplicable and cute. He lifts his hand in a small dismissive wave, and then he shakes his head just once, a slow, gentle gesture of, "Oh, Evie." He turns, and the digital ghost is gone, back to his spreadsheets, back to the real world. That look, that gentle, loving, pitying shake of the head, it is the voice of the entire cave, the voice of the herd, concentrated into a single, devastating gesture. It is the mismatched anchor, pulling her back to the sensible harbor. And she stops. She is paralyzed. The perfectionism voice is triumphant. "See? I told you. You're a joke. Go back inside. Apologize. Make dinner. Forget this. Be normal. This is the moment. This is the final battle of the act." Her entire life, all the family scripts and legacy programming, is pulling her back up, away from the dirt, back to the sterile, comfortable, predictable cage. She closes her eyes. She feels the cold concrete under her knees. She feels the grit on her fingers. She can hear the inner critic screaming. She can feel the burning shame of Liam's pity. And then, a new thought, a cold, hard, logical command cuts through the noise. The voice of Alvarez. Stop analyzing the cage. Deploy the function. She thinks of the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. He wrote that the ultimate act of self is the leap of faith. Not a leap into a belief, but a leap into an action. A leap taken not because of the evidence, but in spite of it. It is the choice that defines the self. She has to choose. Is her self the woman in the window, the companion defined by Liam's gaze? Or is herself the woman on the ground, the architect defined by her own action? In a single fluid motion, she turns her back to the window. She physically, deliberately cuts off the line of sight. She ignores the anchor. She ignores the herd. She faces the cracked, ugly concrete wall. And she pulls out the measuring tape again. Zzz, click. She kneels, and she continues to measure. This is the leap, this is the burning of the ships. It is not a grand, heroic, cinematic gesture. It is a quiet, terrified, and profoundly functional act of defiance. This, the narrator explains, is the true meaning of amor fati, the love of fate that Friedrich Nietzsche demanded. It is not a passive acceptance of your life. It is an active, passionate choosing of your specific, imperfect reality. Evelyn is, in this moment, practicing amor fati. She is not just accepting this ugly, concrete, failed asset. She is choosing it. She is loving it. She is claiming this piece of urban blight as her canvas, her problem, her purpose. She is choosing the small, imperfect action in the real world over the large, perfect dream in her laptop. The act ends. She is alone. She is cold. She is terrified. She is, by all normal standards, a fool. Liam is upstairs, safe, warm, and sane. But he is a persona. He is an unexamined life. Evelyn is on the ground, in the dirt, in the absurd. And for the first time in her entire suffocating, comfortable existence, she is real. She has acted. She is no longer just a thought, a feeling, or a victim. She is a verb. She is a function. She is, at last, deployed. The energy from that single defiant act of imperfect action is a powerful fuel. It carries her for a week. She is no longer a ghost. She is a woman with a project. She is in her assets folder, but she is, fatally, still operating under the old paradigm. She is still the perfectionist, but her focus has simply shifted from her laptop to the courtyard. She is designing her vision. It is a monument to her passion. She designs a garden. It is a beautiful, intricate, and deeply personal work of art. It has a small Zen rock garden, pathways of reclaimed wood, and complex beds of native, shade-loving flowers. It is, in her mind, the perfect, beautiful solution to the ugly, concrete problem. This is the great, subtle trap of the first rebellion. We think our passion is in itself the answer. We believe the world is just waiting for us to finally unveil our perfect, beautiful, unappreciated vision. She has mistaken her passion, what she loves, for her function, what the system needs. She is, just as Senora Alvarez warned, still making it about herself. She is designing a garden to save her own soul, not to solve a specific external problem for the building. This is a fatal, strategic error. She is about to learn the profound and painful difference between being an artist and being an engineer. An artist says, "Look at my beautiful solution." An engineer asks, "What is your actual problem?" She schedules the meeting. Mr. Henderson, the building manager, is a man who lives in a world of leaky pipes, broken elevators, and angry tenants. His reality is a spreadsheet of complaints and budget deficits. Evelyn is nervous, but she is also, for the first time, proud. This is herself, unrolled on a piece of paper. She presents her beautiful color-rendered drawing. She explains the flow, the Zen aspect, the choice of plants. Mr. Henderson looks at the drawing. He looks at her eyes bright with a strange new fire. He looks back at the drawing, at the line item for Japanese maple. And then he lets out a short, sharp, barking laugh. It is not a cruel laugh. It is a laugh of pure, profound, and devastating bewilderment. "A garden?" he says, rubbing his tired face. "You're showing me—" "A garden? Honey, it's pretty. It's real pretty." He slides the drawing back across the desk. "I don't have a budget for pretty. My entire budget for that courtyard is whatever it costs to power wash the graffiti off the wall. I'm not running a country club. I'm just trying to stop people from dumping old sofas back there. I can't use this." That is the word, use. He has rejected her art. He has rejected her. The perfectionism voice is screaming in triumph. "See? You're a fool. He laughed at you. You're just drawing dirt." The humiliation is absolute. It's a cold physical sickness. She mumbles an apology, rolls up her drawing, herself, and escapes. She is crushed. But this, the narrator explains, is the most important lesson of her life. This is the moment the philosopher-emperor Marcus Aurelius lived for. He wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That no from Mr. Henderson is not a wall. It is not a rejection. It is the path. It is the universe in the form of a tired, overworked manager giving her the real data. The data is, your solution is beautiful, but it is useless because you solved the wrong problem. She failed because she, the systems analyst, never even asked the client what the problem was. She assumed the problem was lack of beauty, but the real problem was illegal dumping, graffiti, and zero budget. That is a different engineering challenge entirely. She failed, as the Stoic Epictetus would say, because she was focused on what she wanted, not on what was functionally required by the other person. This failure is not an end. It is the first, true, non-negotiable data point. The obstacle is the instruction. It is telling her, stop being an artist, start being an engineer. But she can't see that yet. All she feels is the hot, white-hot shame. She walks back into the apartment. The architect is dead, her passion a proven, ridiculous joke. Liam is on the couch. He sees her face. He sees the rolled-up drawing in her hand, the one she'd been working on all week. "Let me guess," he says. It's not a mean voice. It's a soft, sad, I know you voice. "He didn't want your pretty dirt drawing." She just shakes her head, the lump in her throat too big to speak. He sighs. "The mismatched anchor." He pats the cushion next to him. "Evie, I told you, it's just a hobby. It's okay. Just let it go. Come on, let's order a pizza. Let's just be normal." His normal is a life sentence. His comfort is her poison. His kindness is the final validation of her failure. The "I told you so," delivered with love, is the final nail in the coffin. The legacy programming has won a total crushing victory. The family script, "You're a nanny." The mismatched anchor, "It's a hobby." And the inner critic, "You're a fraud," are all in the room, staging an intervention for her own good. She has sacrificed her pride, taken a risk and put herself on the line, only to discover that her passion has no value in the real world. It doesn't want her back. Is this the end? Is her one small act of rebellion just the universe's final, cruel joke to prove once and for all that she really is just a nanny. The failure is a dense, cold object inside her. She is sitting on the couch, the rolled-up, laughed-at drawing of her garden on her lap. It is a monument to her own stupidity. Liam's "I told you so" wasn't delivered with malice. It was worse. It was delivered with kindness. It was the soft, sympathetic voice of normalcy, welcoming her back from her strange, foolish expedition. He was the mismatched anchor, gently, lovingly, pulling her back into the safe harbor. And she, in her profound humiliation, is letting him. The architect is dead. The passion is a proven, ridiculous and childish hobby. She is a fool. She is and always has been just a nanny. And then, as if summoned by the universe's cruel sense of humor, the phone rings. It's her mother. The timing is a cosmic joke, a perfectly scripted scene in a play about her own pathetic nature. She answers, her voice a hollow echo of the good daughter persona. "Hi, Mom." Her mother's voice is bright, cheerful, and full of the family script. "Evie, honey, you'll never guess who I just ran into at the market. Mrs. Gable." Evelyn's stomach tightens into a cold, hard knot. "Oh," she says, her voice flat. "That's nice." "Nice?" Her mother laughs. "Honey, it's wonderful. She absolutely cornered me. She cannot find anyone. The new girl is a disaster." Her mother's voice becomes a conspiratorial, excited whisper. "She said, Evie, and I am quoting her directly, 'We will pay anything to get Evelyn back.' She said she would double your old salary." The words hang in the air. Double. This is not an offer. This is a valuation. This is the real world, the one Mr. Henderson and Liam live in, placing its official appraisal on her. Her passion, her art, her function was just laughed out of an office. It was valued at zero. Her persona, the nanny, the legacy code she just failed to escape, has just been valued at double. The cage isn't just comfortable. It is gold-plated. It is respect. It is admiration. It is success. She hangs up the phone in a daze. She is numb. She looks at Liam, who has been watching her, curious. "My mum," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "The Gables, they want me back. They're offering to double the pay." The reaction on Liam's face is instantaneous. It is not greed. It is pure, unadulterated relief. The tension that has been living in his shoulders for weeks, the low-grade anxiety of her weird hobby, just evaporates. "Thank God," he breathes, and it is a genuine prayer. "Evie, that's incredible. That's the best news. Take it. Please, just take it." He moves to her, sits beside her. He is not a jailer. He is a sensible man. "Look," he says, his accountant's brain, his anchor brain taking over. "This is it. This is stability. This is our future. You're brilliant at that job. They value you." He gestures at the rolled-up drawing on her lap, his tone softening to that familiar, patronizing kindness. "You can still do your garden stuff on the weekends. As a hobby, right? But this is real life. This is the big one. We need this. I need this." He takes her hand. "I just need you back. The real you. The you he understands. The persona. This is the great, profound temptation. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about philosophical suicide, the moment we look at the absurd, painful, meaningless struggle of life and simply give up. We accept the routine. We stop the revolt. What Evelyn is being offered is the ultimate version of this. She is being offered a promotion for her surrender. The world is not just allowing her to give up. It is offering to pay her double for it. It is offering her the love and validation of her companion and the pride of her family. All she has to do is stop fighting. All she has to do is accept that the nanny is her, and the architect was a silly, childish dream. The psychologist Carl Jung called this the regression to the persona. The self, the true, authentic architect, has just been wounded, laughed at, and humiliated. It is bleeding out on the floor, and the persona, the good nanny, is standing there with a warm blanket, a cup of tea, and a six-figure contract. "It's okay," it whispers. "Come back. It was scary out there, wasn't it? But it's safe in here." This is the fear of freedom. We are terrified of the cold, open, unknown ocean of the self. The cage is warm, the cage is known, and in her case the cage is now extraordinarily well paid. Liam is smiling at her. He is genuinely, truly happy for the first time in months. He is waiting for her. Yes. The "I told you so" is gone, replaced by the warm, validating glow of "welcome home." All the voices in her head, the family script, the inner critic, the mismatched anchor, are singing in perfect, harmonious unison for the first time. Take it. You've earned it. It's safe. It's smart. It's real. She is at the ultimate crossroads. Will she accept the golden, celebrated, lucrative prison that everyone else calls success? Or will she choose the broke, humiliated, and painful path of drawing dirt? The choice is simple. Which version of herself will she betray? This is the breaking point. This is the moment where the legacy programming and the new insight have a final apocalyptic battle for control of the system. She is standing in her apartment, the golden six-figure contract to return to the Gables, the prism of comfort, glowing metaphorically on the table. It is the validation of her entire family script. It is the relief in Liam's eyes. It is the "I told you so" of the entire, sensible, normal world. And on the other side is a rolled-up, laughed-at drawing of a hobby, a failed project that earned her nothing but pity and humiliation. The perfectionism paralysis is screaming at her, "See, we told you. You are a nanny. That is your function. That is your value. Take the money. Surrender." She is drowning. The mismatched anchor is pulling her down with one hand, and the family script with the other. She is out of data. She is out of ideas. There is only one person left on the planet who speaks her new language. There is only one person who can translate this chaos. She needs her emotional crutch. She needs Senora Alvarez. She grabs her coat, a wild, desperate energy in her eyes. She doesn't call. She just goes. She is an addict, needing one last hit of validation from the only person who ever saw her as her true self. She is going to Alvarez to beg her for the answer. She finds her. She corners her in the lobby of her brutally efficient all-glass and steel office building. Evelyn is a wreck. She is babbling. She lays it all out, the words tumbling over each other in a torrent of humiliation and panic. "He laughed at me. The manager. He said it was just pretty. He said he had no budget." And then the kill shot. And they offered me my old job. Double. They're offering me double the salary to go back. Liam, my companion, he wants me to take it. My family wants me to take it. It's safe. It's real. She finally looks up, her eyes wide with a desperate, childish plea. "Please, just tell me what to do. Is the function thing real, or am I just a fool?" Senora Alvarez does not move. She does not offer a hand. She does not soften her expression. She looks at Evelyn with the same cold, evaluative, engineering-based assessment she used in the park. She waits for the babbling to stop, and then she delivers the final, necessary, and most devastating blow. "I gave you the principle," Alvarez says, her voice flat. "The principle of function. The principle is sound. You are asking me to make a choice for you." Evelyn stammers, "No, I need to know." "You need to know if it's safe," Alvarez cuts her off. "You are asking me for emotional validation for a tactical risk. I do not provide that service." This is the abandonment. This is the loss of the mentor. Evelyn feels the blood drain from her face. "But you're the one who—" Senora Alvarez shakes her head, a final, sharp, impatient gesture. "I am an analyst. I identify systems. Your identity is not my system, it is yours. You are standing at a fork. One path is a low-level function with a high-level reward. The other is a high-level function with an immediate high-level risk. You are asking me to choose your values. That is not my function." She turns, her heels clicking on the marble. "Do not contact me again, Evelyn. Not until you have data. Not until you have made a choice. The analysis is over. Now is the time for deployment, and I cannot deploy you." She is gone. The crutch is kicked away. The only person in the world who spoke the language of the architect has just slammed the door in her face. Evelyn is left alone in the cold, sterile lobby. She is utterly, completely, and profoundly alone. The lighthouse is dark. The safe harbor, Liam, is behind her, calling her home. The new world, Alvarez, has just cast her out. The family script is a warm, waiting bed. The function is a cold, empty, terrifying void. The sense of betrayal is absolute. She was a fool to trust Alvarez. She was a fool to believe she was anything other than a nanny. But we must understand this. We are witnessing not an act of cruelty, but the final necessary act of mentorship. This is the great recurring pattern that the mythologist Joseph Campbell identified in every hero's story ever told. This is the road of trials. The mentor, the wise guide, the one who gives the hero the magic sword or the secret knowledge, must disappear before the final battle. The guide can bring the hero to the entrance of the cave. He cannot go in for him. He cannot slay the dragon. Alvarez has given Evelyn the map. She has given her the philosophy of function. And now she has just done the last, most important thing a mentor can do. She has stepped out of the way. She has forced Evelyn to stop being a student of the philosophy and to become the practitioner of it. She has forced her to internalize the lesson. The great, thundering philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote endlessly about this. He demanded that we become who we are. He argued that all humans are trapped not just by the herd morality, the family script, Liam's normalcy, but by the need for masters. We are terrified of creating our own values. Evelyn was just leaning on a new master. Alvarez, with her philosophy of function, was just a better master. But she was still external. She was still a guru. And in that lobby, in that moment of total abandonment, Alvarez just forced Evelyn to become her own master. She has just been told, in the cold, hard language of systems, become who you are. Stop asking for permission. Stop asking for validation. I gave you the tools, now do the job. Evelyn is standing at the true absolute point zero. She has no mentor. She has no anchor. She has no script. She has only the choice, the golden cage, or the terrifying empty and free sky. The battle is no longer about logic, it is about will. She does not take a cab. She walks. The miles back to her apartment are a long, cold, anonymous anesthetic. The rejection from Alvarez was not a human one. It was a systems rejection. It was a cold, logical firewall. I do not provide that service. Do not contact me again. Evelyn had come to her mentor, a bleeding, open wound, and Alvarez had simply, calmly, and efficiently cauterized the connection. She had not been abandoned. She had been classified as non-essential data. She had been purged from the system. She walks into her building, a ghost in the machine, and floats up the stairs, hollowed out, empty, and completely, finally, alone. The key turns. The apartment is a tomb, it is dark. But it is not empty, there is a light. A small, cold blue rectangle of light, bobbing in the darkness of the living room. It is Liam. He is on the couch. He is the digital ghost. His face is a blue, flickering, anonymous mask, illuminated only by the screen of his phone. He is not working. He is not balancing spreadsheets. He is just scrolling, passing time. A ghost, amusing himself with other, smaller ghosts. He looks up, his eyes not really adjusting, not really seeing her, the woman who has just had her soul amputated in a corporate lobby. "Hey," he murmurs, his thumb never stopping its rhythmic upward flick. "You're back." She stands in the entryway, her coat still on, her bag a dead weight on her shoulder. And the loneliness, the existential void she has felt for years, is finally perfected. It is no longer a vague, abstract bottleneck. It is this scene, the roommate syndrome at its absolute zenith. It is the profound, soul-crushing agony of being in total, desperate, screaming pain, and the one person who is supposed to be your partner, your anchor, is scrolling through memes. He is so completely, comfortably and happily oblivious that he has become a stranger. He is a man on a different planet, sending a signal from a billion miles away. This is the state of affliction, the malheur that the philosopher Simone Weil wrote about. It is not just suffering. It is a suffering so total, so isolating, that it dehumanizes you. It is a force, a gravity, that pulls you down and turns you from a person into an it. Alvarez, the mentor, saw her as an it, a non-functional component. The Gables, the employer, see her as an it, a high-value asset to be purchased. And Liam, the companion, sees her as an it, a piece of the apartment's background, a familiar shape in the dark. She is an object in her own life. The gravity is total. And this state of absolute paralyzing despair is what Søren Kierkegaard identified as the true sickness unto death. This is the moment. It is not the despair of having no choice. It is the far more terrifying despair of having two choices, and both are a form of death. She can choose path A, the golden cage, the nanny job, a life of being a well-paid, well-respected, and completely hollow persona. Or she can choose path B, the architect. A path that has led to nothing but humiliation, rejection, and now total abandonment. Both are a self she cannot be. She is paralyzed between two forms of her own non-existence. This, the narrator explains, is the fundo do poço, the bottom of the well. And it is not dark and muddy. It is a place of terrible crystal clarity. There are no more illusions. There are no more hobbies. There are no more mentors, no more guides, no more crutches. She sees the persona, the cage, for what it is. A warm, comfortable, lucrative tomb. She sees her self, the architect, for what it is. A failed, humiliated, unsupported, and ridiculous dream. She sees her mentor, Alvarez, for what she is. A cold, logical system that will not save her. And she sees her anchor, Liam, for what he is, a stranger. She is standing in the dark, invisible. And then it happens. A sound from the couch, a short, soft, single ha, a small, quiet laugh. Liam has found a video, a stupid, trivial, 30-second clip of a cat falling off a table, and it has moved him. It has generated a response. He has more of a connection, more of an emotional intimacy, with a random video on the internet than he does with the woman standing 5 feet away from him, who is in the process of dying an existential death. The sound of that small, soft, content laugh is the single most violent, isolating and devastating sound she has ever heard. Is this, then, where her story ends? Is this the final, logical, unavoidable conclusion? That she is, in fact, not a high-level component? That she is not an architect? That she is not a hero on a journey? Is she, after all, just a failed asset in a dark room next to a stranger? Is this it? Is she, after all, a failure? The sound. That small, soft, stupid ha. The sound of a cat falling off a table. The sound of her companion connecting, for a brief, trivial moment, with a digital ghost. It is the punctuation mark on the end of her world. It is the universe's final, quiet, and profoundly insulting joke. And in that moment, the fight does not go out of her in a rush. It does not explode. It simply evaporates. The high, whining, screaming tension that has been her constant companion for years, the tension of the inner critic, the perfectionism paralysis, the desperate, striving, clawing need to be seen and validated, just dissolves. The battlefield in her mind, where the nanny and the architect were locked in a war to the death, suddenly goes quiet, because both sides have been annihilated. There is nothing left to fight. The nanny is a golden hollow tomb. The architect is a humiliated, failed, and abandoned joke. Her mentor is a firewall. Her companion is a stranger. She stands in the dark, and for the first time, there is no plan. There is no strategy. There is no what if. There is no if only. There is only the isness of the moment. And the isness is this. She is a woman in a dark room, her shoes are wet from the walk, and she is completely, utterly, and finally done. She does not cry. She does not scream. She does not collapse. She simply stops. The persona and the self have both died, and she just accepts. Okay, a part of her thinks, not to Liam, not to Alvarez, but to the void itself. Okay, I give up. This is the moment. This is the point zero. And this, the narrator explains, is the great misunderstood secret of all transformation. This is not weakness. This is not defeat. This is the most profound and difficult act of strength. This is the moment of true surrender. The philosopher Eckhart Tolle speaks of this. He teaches that the human ego, the inner critic, the perfectionism paralysis, that entire, terrified, chattering construct of Evelyn cannot exist without resistance. It needs a problem. It needs to fight against the nanny job. It needs to resist Liam's incomprehension. It needs to rage against Alvarez's rejection. The ego is the resistance. It is a knot of pure, anxious tension, defining itself by what it is not. And in this moment, Evelyn is simply too tired to resist. She is too broken to maintain the tension. She is not surrendering herself. She is surrendering the ego's desperate, lifelong fight to exist. She is, for the first time in her adult life, not resisting the present moment. She is not arguing with it or trying to fix it or trying to escape it. She is just in it. The present moment is dark. It is lonely. It is a failure. And she is letting it be. She is letting herself be. She has stopped trying to fix the system. She has stopped trying to be a function. She has just stopped. And in this stopping, she has starved her inner critic of its only food source, her own resistance. This is what the philosopher Alan Watts called the wisdom of insecurity. We are, all of us, terrified of the void. We are terrified of insecurity. So we spend our entire lives trying to build solid ground where there is none. We build solid identities. Premium nanny, good daughter, stable partner. When that ground cracked, Evelyn tried to build a new piece of solid ground. Successful architect. Both were attempts to control the future. Both were attempts to eliminate insecurity. And both have just been annihilated. She is now for the first time floating in the void. She has no identity. She has no security. She has no future. And, as Watts would argue, it is only from this point zero of total absolute insecurity that anything new, anything real can possibly begin. This is the great flowing river of Heraclitus. You cannot step in the same river twice. The Evelyn who was humiliated by the building manager is gone. The Evelyn who was abandoned by her mentor is gone. The Evelyn who was invalidated by her companion's laugh is gone. The water has moved on. By surrendering to the now, by letting go of who she was, a failure, and who she should be, a success, she has finally, simply, become. She is just here. The old construct, the persona, the ego, the legacy programming, it has all collapsed. The old self, the one that was fighting so hard, has died. And the void that is left, this quiet, empty point zero, is not an ending. It is a womb. She is still standing in the dark. Liam is still scrolling, completely oblivious. The world has not changed one tiny bit. But she has. The screaming, panicked, desperate, resisting thing inside her is, at last, silent. She takes a breath. It is not a breath of joy. It is not a breath of hope. It is the first breath she has taken in her entire life that is not fighting with reality. It is a breath of simple, profound, and total acceptance. This is the end. This is the total collapse of herself. But as the narrator explains, this is the great, powerful secret. This is not the end of the line. This is the bottom of the U-turn. This is the silence before the first note. Is this the moment her story is over? Or is this the moment it actually begins? This is point zero. The silence in the apartment is no longer a vacuum. It is a presence. The sound of Liam's small, stupid laugh, the one meant for a digital cat, has acted as a breaker switch. It has cut the power to the entire, howling, high-voltage machine of her suffering. The inner critic, the perfectionism paralysis, the family script, that entire chattering, terrified committee in her head has finally, mercifully, gone silent. There is no one left to fight. There is nothing left to resist. She has surrendered. The nanny persona is a hollow, gold-plated tomb. The architect persona is a humiliated, failed, and abandoned joke. She is nothing. She is no one. And she is, for the first time, not fighting it. We as humans are terrified of this state. We are terrified of the void, of the kenosis, the great divine emptying. We mistake this profound generative silence for death. But it is not death. It is the end of resistance. The philosopher Eckhart Tolle describes the ego not as a self, but as a process. It is the process of compulsive, anxious resistance to the present moment. It is the knot of tension that defines itself by what it is not, what it wants, and what it fears. Evelyn's ego, her persona, her legacy programming, has been a system at war with its own reality for decades. And in this moment, she is simply too broken, too tired, and too abandoned to maintain the tension. She has, finally, let go. And in this new, profound and absolute silence, a single piece of data floats to the surface. It is not an emotion. It is not a memory of pain. It is a voice, a cold, clear, logical voice, the voice of Alvarez. Do not ever tell me how you feel about an asset. Tell me its function. The philosophical Chekhov's gun planted in that glass conference room has just gone off. It is the only sound in the silence. It is the only piece of code running on the now blank hard drive. Tell me its function. It is a command, it is a diagnostic tool, and it is the only tool she has left. Her mind, now operating with a strange, cold and beautiful clarity, seizes that tool, and it runs a new diagnostic. It pulls up the memory of her greatest humiliation, the meeting with the building manager, Mr. Henderson. She replays the scene, but not as a victim. She replays it as a systems analyst. She hears his voice. A garden. I don't have a budget for pretty. I can't use this. And then, the second Alvarez principle, the one from the coffee shop, clicks into place. The cure is to implant your function to solve a specific external problem. The two pieces of logic snap together, and the epiphany that follows is not a warm, emotional aha. It is a cold, brilliant, structural click. I didn't fail. The thought is not a hope, it is a conclusion. I didn't fail at being an architect, I failed at identifying the problem. I went to that man with a solution to my problem. My problem was, I need beauty. My problem was, my passion is not seen. My problem was my void. I was an artist trying to express myself. I was still, as Alvarez warned, making it about me. She sees it now, with perfect 2020 functional clarity. She never once asked Mr. Henderson what his problem was. She was so blinded by her own passion that she failed to gather the most basic data. This is the great, powerful, and often misunderstood lesson of the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius. He wrote over and over, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That no from Mr. Henderson was not a rejection. It was the brief. It was the real data. It was the instruction. He told her the problem, but she was too busy feeling humiliated to hear it. The problem was not lack of beauty. The problem was illegal dumping, graffiti, tenant complaints, and zero budget. That is not an art project. That is a goddamn engineering challenge, and that is the function she is built for. This, the narrator explains, is the great pivot. This is the cure for the void. This is the core of logotherapy, the philosophy built by Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the Holocaust. He discovered that the will to live was not found in a will to pleasure or a will to power, but in a will to meaning. And he, like Alvarez, concluded that meaning is not something you find by looking inside. It is not self-discovery. It is self-transcendence. It is the act of aiming your life at something other than yourself. For years, Evelyn has been a black hole of self-absorption. My pain, my void, my prison. The epiphany is that the only way to escape a black hole is to aim out. This is the true functional meaning of Ikigai. We are told to follow our passion, but that is only half the map. That is still self-focused. The true intersection, the reason for being, is when your passion, the architect, stops being a hobby and becomes a tool. It is when that tool is deployed in service to a need greater than your own. This is the correct function that Plato spoke of in his Republic. The artisan is not happy because he expresses himself. He is happy because he is useful to the city. Evelyn's failure was the failure of the artist. Her epiphany is the birth of the engineer. She is still standing in the dark. Liam is still scrolling, oblivious. The Gables are still waiting with their golden contract. Nothing in the external world has changed. But she is a new entity. The legacy code of the nanny and the failed program of the artist have both been wiped. A new clean functional operating system has just booted up. The void is still there, but it is no longer a pit of despair. It is a blank canvas. It is point zero. She has new data. She has a new correct target. It is a beautiful, elegant, and perfectly logical idea, but she is also a broke, humiliated, and failed nanny. What, in the practical, real, concrete world, can she do with that? The epiphany was not a warm emotional sunrise. It was a cold structural click. It was the sound of a diagnostic tool finally identifying the root error. Evelyn is at her laptop. The assets folder is open, but the woman looking at it is not the same person. The secret, shame-filled artist is gone. The hollow, defeated nanny is gone. In their place is a new entity, a cold, focused, and profoundly impersonal analyst. She is an engineer who has just been handed a new, correct data set. She looks at her old failed garden design, the beautiful, color-rendered, useless drawing that got her laughed out of the office. She does not feel shame. She does not feel humiliated. She feels nothing but a cool, detached sense of appraisal. Wrong solution, she murmurs. Wrong data, solved for my problem, not the client's. She hits the delete key. The perfectionism paralysis screams, a dying echo. That was months of work. The engineer's mind replies it was a failed prototype, and the file is gone. She opens a new blank document. Not a design canvas, a spreadsheet, a text document. At the top she types Courtyard Asset Redeployment Plan V1. And then she lists the actual data. The data she gathered not from her passion, but from her failure. She lists the words of Mr. Henderson. 1. Problem: illegal dumping, trash. 2. Problem: graffiti, ugliness. 3. Problem: tenant complaints. 4. Constraint: zero budget. This is not a dream. This is a list of enemies. This is an engineering challenge. The great Chinese strategist Sun Tzu wrote, "Know your enemy and know yourself, and you will not be imperiled in 100 battles." For years, Evelyn's enemy was her own inner critic, her own void, her own self-absorption. She was in an unwinnable war against herself, but the humiliation from Henderson gave her the true intel. The enemy isn't her. The enemy is zero budget. The enemy is illegal dumping. And she, the architect, is the weapon designed to fight that battle. Her perfectionism paralysis was a fortress built to protect the fragile artist from the world's judgment. But an engineer doesn't have time for that. An engineer is not trying to express themselves. They are trying to solve the problem. And so the paralysis simply dissolves. It has no function here. Her mind is too busy. How do you solve dumping with zero budget? She types. Not with delicate flowers. You solve it with weight. You solve it with barriers. She starts searching online. Recycled industrial materials. Free concrete culvert pipes. City reclamation site assets. She starts designing. She will use massive, heavy, immovable concrete planters, too big for anyone to steal, too heavy for anyone to dump. She will fill them with free soil and mulch from the city. She will plant them only with hardy, low-water native grasses that thrive on neglect. She is using her passion, but as a tool, not as an identity. This, the narrator explains, is the great practical magic of the Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu. He taught the wisdom of Wu Wei, of effortless action. It is the wisdom of water. The perfectionism paralysis is ice. It is a rigid, brittle, perfect, and dead statue. It demands the world conform to its perfect shape. Evelyn's first garden plan was ice. It shattered on contact with reality. This new plan, this is water. It is not perfect. It is functional. It is moving around the obstacle, the budget, finding the cracks, the recycled materials, and flowing toward the solution. This is not an act of passion. It is an act of surrender. A surrender of the ego's perfect idea to the system's actual need. She works for hours, but the energy is not the manic, dreamy, self-indulgent energy of the artist. It is the clean, cold, flow-state energy of the engineer. It is impersonal. It is purpose. The inner critic is silent, not because she has healed it, but because she has simply bored it. The fear is still there, but it is no longer the center of the universe. It is a whining, annoying process running in the background. But the engineer has allocated all the system's primary processing power to solving the actual problem. The fear of self is the disease, the service to other is the cure. Sun Tzu's strategy and Lao Tzu's flow have converged. Stop fighting yourself, just do the work. In the end, she does not have a drawing. She has a 10-page PDF. It is not pretty, it is functional. It has a phased rollout plan. It has a budget, total $0, sourced from recycled assets. It has a materials list. And most importantly, it has a section titled Benefit Analysis for Stakeholder. It has bullet points: reduces janitorial overhead, dumping deterrence; increases tenant safety, solar-powered path lighting; improves property asset value, increased usability. She has taken her hidden passion and forged it into a tool. She has translated her art into the only language the real world understands: value. This is the micro-valor. It is the logical, functional, and impersonal result of her epiphany. She has stopped trying to escape her life and has, for the first time, designed a proposal to build one. The plan is sound. The logic is irrefutable. It is based on the correct data. But it is still just a PDF, a collection of ideas on a glowing screen, and she is still, by all definitions, a broke, humiliated, and failed nanny. She has solved the intellectual problem, but now she must face the real one. Does she have the courage to actually act on this? Does she have the will to walk back into the office of the man who laughed at her, not as an artist begging for validation, but as an engineer presenting a solution? This is the second attempt. This is the imperfect action in its purest, most terrifying form. She is standing outside Mr. Henderson's office, the 10-page, spiral-bound asset redeployment plan, a cold, heavy object in her hands. It is not a pretty drawing. It is a tactical proposal. It is a piece of engineering. But the inner critic, her legacy programming, does not care. It is on fire. The perfectionism paralysis is staging its last, desperate stand. The voice in her head is a torrent of pure, unadulterated, rational fear. "You are a fool," it whispers, the voice a perfect blend of her mother's common sense and Liam's pity. "He laughed at you. He laughed. And you are walking back in for a second helping. This is not courage. This is humiliation. You are a nanny. Go home." The fear is not an abstraction. It is a physical, metallic taste in her mouth. Her heart is a cold, hard, compressed knot. The old Evelyn, the artist, would have turned around. The artist needs validation. The artist is terrified of judgment. The artist is, by definition, self-absorbed, focused on how her work, her passion, her self will be received. But the woman standing in this hallway is not the artist. She is the engineer. And the engineer has a different, colder, and infinitely more powerful objective. The engineer's focus is not on the self, it is on the problem. She takes a breath. She does not try to fight the fear. She does not try to heal the inner critic. She simply accepts it. "Okay, you're there, I hear you. Now get in the back seat, I have to drive." She walks in. Mr. Henderson is on the phone, yelling about a boiler. He looks up, sees her, and his face darkens with pure, undisguised annoyance. "Look, honey, I told you, I don't have time for the—" She does not wait for him to finish. She does not apologize. She does not smile. She does not try to be charming or pretty or nice. She channels the cold, functional, brutalist logic of Senora Alvarez. She is a component. She is here to deploy a function. She walks to his desk, places the 10-page, professionally bound document in front of him, and breaks his pattern. "Mr. Henderson, you have a systemic failure in your Zone 7 asset." He stops talking. He just stares at her. The phone is still at his ear. "What?" he says to her, not the phone. She points to the cover. "You have a problem with illegal dumping, which is costing you janitorial overhead. You have a problem with graffiti, which is lowering property value. You have a problem with tenant complaints, and you have a $0 budget." She has just recited, verbatim, his entire headache. She has just shown him that she heard him. She has not come to show him her. She has come to solve his problem. He hangs up the phone slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. This is not the hobbyist he laughed at. This is a different person. This, the narrator explains, is the entire philosophy. This is the great secret of the Stoics. This is not bravery. Bravery is a fleeting, unreliable emotion. This is courage. And courage, as Seneca the Younger taught, is not the absence of fear. It is the judgment that something else is more important. Her inner critic is still present. Her fear of humiliation is still a cold knot in her stomach. But her focus has been ripped away from herself and placed with surgical precision on the service. She is no longer the patient in the room, begging for validation. She is the surgeon presenting the solution. The antidote for the fear of self is the service to other. It is the only antidote that has ever worked. She turns to page 1. The problem is not lack of beauty, the problem is lack of a deterrent. Your asset is a hard-to-police, low-value target. We need to make it a high-value, self-policing one. Here is the plan. She is not fighting her fear anymore. She is simply bypassing it. She has allocated all her processing power to the mission. The fear is still there, but it has been demoted. It is no longer the CEO of her mind. It is an annoying, whining process running in the background, and the engineer is too busy solving the actual problem to pay it any attention. The great philosopher Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery, built his entire system of human freedom on this single, brutal distinction. Focus only on what is in your control. Evelyn cannot control Henderson's reaction. He might laugh again. He might hate the plan. He might throw her out. That is external data. It is, in the Stoic sense, not her problem. What is in her control? The quality of her research, the logic of her proposal, the cold, professional, data-driven act of presenting that proposal. She is not there to win his approval. She is there, as a matter of personal internal virtue, to do her job. She is there to deploy her function. She walks him through it, her voice steady. No emotion, just data. By sourcing 3-ton concrete culvert pipes from the city reclamation yard, which lists them as free, we create immovable barriers. This is not a garden. This is a dumping deterrent system. By using specific native low-water grasses, we are not decorating. We are reducing graffiti surfaces and increasing tenant usability. By using 2 $20 solar-powered motion lights, we are not adding ambiance. We are increasing tenant safety and making the area a hard target. Henderson is not smiling. He is not pitying. He is leaning forward. He is reading. He is a man who understands leaky pipes, and he is finally listening to someone who is not speaking the language of pretty, but the language of plumbing. She gets to the last page, the budget, the big, beautiful, perfect number. Total cost $40 for the 2 solar lights. She finishes. She has done her part. She has executed the function. She has acted with virtue. The inner critic is, for this one, brief, miraculous moment, silent. It has not been healed. It has not been defeated. It has simply been rendered irrelevant. She stands in silence. She has deployed the architect. The ball is not in her court. It is in his. He just looks at the 10-page document. He looks at her. He looks back at the document. The silence in the small, ugly office is total, and then he speaks. "You're the nanny, right?" The question hangs in the air, a perfect, cold, clinical test. "You're the nanny, right?" He is not asking for information. He is asking for a confirmation of her persona, of the legacy code he understands. He is holding the nanny box in one hand and her 10-page proposal in the other, and his brain cannot reconcile the 2 data sets. The inner critic, sensing its moment, rises up, screaming at her to apologize, to minimize, to laugh it off. "Yes, I know. It's just a silly idea. I'm just the nanny." But the engineer does not apologize for the data. The engineer does not apologize for the function. She holds his gaze. Her voice is not warm. It is not cold. It is simply functional. "That is my current deployment. This," she taps the document, "is my proposed one." His eyes drop from her face to the document. He is not looking at a pretty drawing anymore. He is looking at a plan. He is a man who understands budgets and boilers, and he is reading a language he understands. He flips the page. He sees the sourced materials. He sees the deterrent system. He sees the bullet-pointed benefit analysis for stakeholder. He sees, most importantly, the final, beautiful, impossible line item. Total cost, $40. He taps the paper. "You're serious," he says. "It is not a question. It is a diagnosis. The city reclamation yard. This is all sourced. This is real." "Yes," she says. "The data on free cycle assets is in the appendix." He leans back in his chair. It's the sound of a man's entire worldview recalibrating. He is not looking at a hobbyist. He is not looking at a fool. He is not, in fact, even looking at a nanny. He is looking at a solution. He is looking at a component that has just, inexplicably, offered to solve his single biggest headache for the price of 2 solar lights. And in that moment, we must analyze the effect of this single external validation. The inner critic, the perfectionism paralysis, that entire roaring, screaming committee of fear in her head, operates on belief. It operates on shame. It operates on internalized scripts. It has no defense against cold, hard, external data. Henderson's grudging, baffled respect is not an opinion. It is a fact. It is a proof of concept. It is the universe's first objective data point, confirming that her function has value. The inner critic tries to speak, to whisper, "He's just being nice," or "He'll laugh when you leave." But the words have no energy. They are vapor. The new, external, real-world data has just invalidated the entire legacy programming of her fear. The fear is not healed. It has not been processed. It has simply been rendered irrelevant. It has been silenced, not by willpower, but by evidence. Henderson nods. It is a single, sharp, decisive gesture. "All right," he says. He scribbles his signature on her budget page, a crude, functional act. "I'll sign the purchase order for the $40. You get the materials. You manage the deployment." He pushes the paper back to her. "You make this courtyard function?" He pauses, then looks at her. A different kind of respect, the respect of one manager for another. "You know how many complaints I get about that concrete pit? You're the first person who ever walked in here with a solution that doesn't cost me something. This is good work, Nanny." Good work. The words land, and they are not the "you have a gift" of the family script. They are not the "you're so good with kids" of her persona. This is different. This is utility. This feeling, this strange, cold, solid click in her chest, is not happiness. It is not joy. It is alignment. This is the feeling the philosopher Plato described in his Republic. He argued that a just and happy soul is not one that is free to do whatever it wants. It is a soul where every part has found its correct function. For years, Evelyn was a high-level component, the architect, being forced into a low-level slot, the nanny. The existential void she felt was the sound of this profound, structural injustice. This, standing in this cramped, ugly, fluorescent-lit office, is her first true taste of eudaimonia, the Greek word for human flourishing. And as Aristotle defined it, eudaimonia is not a feeling. It is virtuous activity. She is flourishing, not because she feels good, but because she is, for the first time, useful. This is the first signal of her ikigai. It is the moment the roads have crossed. What she loves, design, has met what she is good at, systems, and it has just been validated as solving what the world needs, Henderson's problem. The fourth road, what you can be paid for, is not here, but the proof of value is. She walks out of his office. The signed PO for $40 is in her hand. It is a flimsy, cheap piece of paper, and it is at the same time the single most valuable object she has ever owned. It is a contract. It is proof. It is the first piece of external evidence in her entire suffocating adult life that the architect is real, that her passion is not a weird hobby or drawing dirt, but a deployable, valuable function. She doesn't feel cured. She feels calibrated. She has a job to do. She has to go to the city reclamation yard. She has the yes. She has the proof. She has silenced the internal enemy with external irrefutable data. She has proven her function to one man in one small, forgotten, concrete courtyard. But the war is not over. The golden cage is still waiting. The six-figure offer from the Gables, the prism of comfort, is still on the table. The mismatched anchor is still at home, waiting for her to return to normalcy. She has just won a battle, and in doing so, has gathered the one weapon she needs to fight the entire war. She has proven her value to a stranger, but how will she ever use that to win against the family script and the man who claims to love her? This is the pivot point. This is the fulcrum on which an entire life is about to turn. Evelyn is at her small desk, her laptop open. She is not designing, she is scheduling. She is on the City Reclamation Yard's website, arranging a pickup time for 3 tons of free recycled concrete culvert pipes. She is in the clean, cold, logistical flow state of the engineer. On her desk, the signed $40 purchase order from Henderson is a physical anchor. It is the first piece of external data that proves the architect is real, and then the legacy system makes its final, desperate, all-out assault. The phone rings. The caller ID is Mrs. Gable. This is not a social call. This is a business transaction. Mrs. Gable's voice is crisp, efficient, and final. Evelyn, I'm glad I caught you. My husband is finalizing our insurance riders for the fiscal year, and I need to close the books on household staffing. The corporate language is intentional. The offer stands double your previous salary. It's a 2-year contract, guaranteed, but I need a yes or a no by 5 p.m. today, so we can either process your paperwork or move on to the next candidate. The line clicks. It is done. The golden cage is not a vague, comfortable possibility. It is a high-value, time-sensitive, legally binding opportunity. It is the prism of comfort at its most seductive. She puts the phone down. The silence in the apartment is a roaring vacuum. On one side of her desk, a PO for $40 to haul industrial garbage. On the other, a verbal contract for a 6-figure salary to return to a job she understands, at which she is valued, and that everyone in her life defines as success. It is the universe staging the most absurd, cosmic, and brutal joke. It is the ultimate, final test. The choice is not between good and bad. It is between security and meaning. And the mismatched anchor, her companion Liam, walks into the room. He heard the voice. He saw her face. That was Gable, he says. It is not a question. She nods, her throat too tight to speak. They need an answer. By 5. A wave of profound, total and absolute relief washes over Liam's face. The tension that has lived in his shoulders for weeks, the anxiety about her weird hobby, her instability, evaporates in an instant. Thank God, he breathes, and it is a genuine, heartfelt prayer. Evie, it's over. You did it. He comes over to her, his voice full of a deep, logical and devastating kindness. You proved your point. You got that manager to sign your thing. It was an amazing project. You won. Now, please, take the job. Take the money. Let's just go back to normal. Normal. The word hits her like a physical blow. Normal is the void. Normal is the roommate syndrome. Normal is the digital ghost. Normal is the slow, comfortable, anesthetic death she has been dying for a decade. He is not a villain. He is the voice of the herd. He is the sound of the family script. He is the embodiment of all the common sense in the world, begging her to come back into the warm, safe, predictable cave. He is offering her validation for her surrender. His reason is the most powerful weapon the legacy programming has. Her inner critic is screaming in agreement. He's right. Take the money. You're a fool. You're choosing trash over a future. You are a goddamn idiot. This is the moment. This is what the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called the existential choice. He taught that we are not a self. We are a process. We are, moment by moment, creating our self by the choices we make. And the most important choices, the ones that actually build the self, are almost always the absurd ones. The sensible choice, the logical one, the one the herd agrees on, taking the nanny job, is not a choice. It is a surrender. It is an abdication of the self. It is an agreement to go on performing the persona. The absurd choice, choosing a $40 unpaid backbreaking garbage project over a fortune, is the only choice in the room. It is the only act that creates the architect. The philosopher Albert Camus defined this crossroads in even starker terms. He saw only two options in the face of a meaningless, absurd existence. The first is philosophical suicide. This is the act of giving up. It is the surrender to the absurd. It is the moment you stop fighting the void and agree to just exist. It is the "is this it?" becoming "it is what it is." Taking the job is philosophical suicide. It is the warm, comfortable, lucrative death of herself. The second option, the only option for the conscious human, is revolt. Revolt is the act of staring the absurd in the face. Yes, it's insane to choose this. Yes, it's illogical. Yes, I may fail, and choosing meaning anyway. She looks at Liam. His face is so open, so hopeful. He is waiting for his Evelyn to come back. And she realizes, with a cold, clear, structural certainty, that she cannot. To say yes to him, to normalcy, would be the final, unforgivable lie. It would not just be a betrayal of herself, it would be a betrayal of him. It would be agreeing to live as a persona, a hollow, functional mask, in his bed, in his life. She is trapped between two forms of death, the death of her body's security, or the death of her soul's function, the golden cage, or the dirty, terrifying, and real freedom. The phone is on the desk. The PO is next to it. It is 4:45 p.m. It is 4:58 p.m. The deadline is a physical presence in the room, a screaming, silent pressure. The phone is on the desk. It represents the Gables, the six-figure contract, the golden cage. It represents a life of guaranteed, validated, and profoundly hollow success. It represents the persona. Beside it, a flimsy $40 purchase order. It represents a concrete courtyard. It represents hauling industrial trash for free. It represents the function. Liam, her companion, is watching her, his face a mask of open, desperate, and loving hope. He is not a villain. He is the anchor. He is the voice of the entire family script, the entire normal world, begging her to be sensible, to come home, to be the person he understands. The inner critic is in full, harmonious agreement. Take the money, you fool. This is your last chance. This is security. The other path is humiliation and insanity. This is the ultimate existential choice. This is the moment the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard identified as the crucible of the self. He taught that we are not a self that is, but a self that is becoming. And we become, moment by moment, through our choices. But, he warned, the sensible choice, the one the herd validates, the one that makes logical, financial, and social sense, that is almost never a choice. It is a surrender. It is an agreement to continue performing the persona everyone else has written for you. The only true choice, the one that forges the self, is the one that seems to the rest of the world to be an act of pure, unadulterated, and terrifying absurdity. Her hand is shaking, but it is not the frantic, anxious shake of the artist. It is a low-frequency vibration, the hum of a machine that is about to engage a massive gear. She does not look at Liam. She does not look at the PO. She picks up the phone. She dials. Liam's entire body sags in relief. He thinks she is making the right call. He thinks the fever has broken. He thinks his Evelyn is back. He smiles, a wide, beautiful, and profoundly mistaken smile. And then he hears her voice. It is a new voice. It is a calm, clear, functional, and deeply, deeply impersonal voice. "Mrs. Gable," she says, "this is Evelyn. Thank you so much for the generous offer." Liam's smile freezes. "I've had a chance to review my current project pipeline," Evelyn continues, her voice as steady as the concrete she is about to move. "And my primary function has already been redeployed to a new asset. I will not be able to accept your contract." She pauses. "Thank you again." She listens for a moment, nods to the empty air, and hangs up the phone. It's done. The click of the phone settling into its cradle is the loudest sound in the universe. It is the sound of the golden cage door swinging shut from the outside, It is the sound of the ships, the entire legacy fleet, burning to the waterline. Liam is staring at her, his face a perfect white mask of incomprehension. The mismatched anchor has just had his chain vaporized. "What?" he whispers. It is not a question. It is a system error. "What? What did you just do?" "That was Evie. That was our future." The inner critic joins him, a chorus of pure, shrieking panic. "You are insane. You have just destroyed your life. You have chosen garbage over a fortune." But the woman who hung up the phone is not listening. The war is over. The choice has been made, and the struggle, the terrible, anxious, grinding resistance, is gone. In its place is a feeling she has never, in her entire hollow life, experienced. It is not happiness. It is not joy. It is not victory. It is peace. It is a deep, cold, structural, and profoundly beautiful calm. It is the feeling of 1,000 warring, misaligned gears that have been grinding against each other for decades, finally, clicking into a single, functional, powerful alignment. This, the narrator explains, is the true meaning of becoming who you are. It is not a feeling. It is a function. It is the end of the civil war against the self. This is the peace that Friedrich Nietzsche described. It is the peace of authenticity. It is the profound, silent, and unshakable calm of a human being who has at last stopped lying. She does not engage him. She does not justify or argue or defend. The engineer does not debate the value of the function. She simply executes it. She calmly picks up the $40 purchase order. She picks up her keys. She walks to the closet and, with a new quiet deliberation, pulls on her work boots. The boots she bought for the courtyard. Liam is stammering now, the panic rising in his voice. You're leaving? Now? You just threw away our lives. For that? For trash? He is the herd. He is the cave. He is the anchor. And he is, for the first time, afraid. She pauses at the door. Her hand is on the knob. She looks back at him, and her eyes are not angry. They are not sad. They are just clear. She sees him, perhaps for the first time, not as her anchor, but as a man who is simply and tragically stuck. "I'm not choosing trash, Liam," she says, her voice quiet, the voice of the architect now fully in control. "I'm choosing my function." She opens the door, and she walks out. She does not run. She does not flee. She simply proceeds. This, the narrator explains, is the wisdom of Wu Wei. The great agonizing internal struggle was in the choosing. It was the battle of the persona versus the self. But once the correct action was chosen, the doing of it is simple. It is effortless. She is not fighting to go to the courtyard. She is flowing to it. It is the single, next, correct, and inevitable step. She has chosen the absurd path, and in doing so has become the only sane person in her entire chaotic and hollow system. She is no longer a persona. She is a purpose. The work begins. It is not a dream. It is a logistical, back-breaking reality. The first load of materials arrives on a flatbed truck from the city reclamation yard. 3-ton reinforced concrete culvert pipes. They are massive, industrial, and profoundly, brutally ugly. They are monuments to her absurd choice. The inner critic, the voice of the family script and the mismatched anchor, has one last, desperate, shrieking surge. "You threw away a 6-figure salary for this? You abandoned your entire life for industrial-grade trash?" But the woman looking at the pipes is not the artist who failed. She is not the nanny who surrendered. She is the engineer. And she looks at these 3-ton cylinders of grey concrete, not with shame, but with a cold, clear, structural satisfaction. These are not trash. These are the dumping deterrent system. The labor is a shock to her system. It is not the clean, sterile psychological exhaustion of the nanny job, a day spent managing the emotional state of a child and her high-strung parents. This is physical. This is dirt under her fingernails. This is the acidic burn of sweat in her eyes. This is a deep, primal, and profoundly honest ache in her shoulders and back. but the quality of the fatigue is entirely different. The nanny job left her drained, hollow, and empty. This leaves her spent. There is a clean, structural, and powerful difference. The nanny job was a performance. This is a function. She is not an actress playing a role. She is a component, finally, deploying its primary load-bearing design. This, the narrator explains, is the great misunderstood secret of purpose. We have been sold a romantic lie that purpose is a feeling of constant, blissful, passionate happiness. This is false. Purpose is not a feeling at all. It is an outcome. It is the objective, observable result of what the Greek philosopher Aristotle called eudaimonia. And for Aristotle, eudaimonia was not a feeling either. It was not joy. It was human flourishing. It was a state achieved only through virtuous activity, the act of a human being operating at their highest, most functional, and most authentic level. Evelyn is not happy. She is covered in dirt, she is exhausted, and she has, by all social standards, just destroyed her life. But she is for the first time flourishing. The existential void, the black hole of self-absorption, cannot survive in this environment. The void requires a mind that is turned inward. It feeds on the endless, anxious, recursive loop of who am I, and what about me, and am I happy? But Evelyn's mind is no longer available for that. It has been redeployed. It is focused with the intensity of a laser, outward. It is engaged in a complex, multivariable, real-world engineering problem. Is the soil drainage in this pipe adequate? Is the barrier high enough to deter dumping? Will this solar light get enough sun at this angle? The inner critic tries to speak, but she cannot hear it. The engineer is simply too busy, too engaged, too functional. On the third day, a new variable enters the system. A tenant, an older man who had complained to Henderson about the courtyard for years, comes down. He does not offer to help the crazy lady. He just watches. He observes the logic. He sees the heavy, immovable function of the concrete barriers. He sees the systematic way she is testing the soil. He sees an engineer, not a hobbyist. "You're the nanny, right?" he asks. Evelyn nods, not looking up from her work. "Not anymore," she says. The man watches for another minute. "You need mulch," he says, a statement of fact. "My brother runs a landscaping supply company. I'll make a call." He is not offering charity. He is offering resources. The space, and by extension she, is transformed. The montage is not one of pretty flowers and dreamy work. It is a montage of function. The concrete pipes, once ugly, are now barriers. The hardy, native, low-water grasses she plants are not decoration. They are erosion control. The two $40 solar lights are not ambiance. They are security. But a strange, accidental byproduct emerges from this brutalist logic. The function, when deployed with this much intention, creates its own kind of honest, powerful, and profound beauty. The courtyard is not pretty. It is not the Zen garden of her failed artistic ego. It is functional. It works. And because it works, other tenants begin to use it. The void is no longer a void. It is an asset. This is her ikigai in its final non-mystical and functional form. This is her reason for being, not as a feeling, but as a fact. Her hidden passion, the architect, has been forged from a dream, the laptop, into a failure, the first drawing, and now finally into a tool, this courtyard. Her function is no longer a weird hobby or drawing dirt. It is a deployable, valuable, real-world skill set. She stands in the middle of the transformed courtyard. It is clean, it is safe, it is functional. And the existential void, the is this it, that has haunted her entire adult life, is gone. It has been filled, not by a feeling, but by proof. She has done it. She has built her new world, or at least the first one-to-one scale model of it. She has proven the function. She has found her purpose. But the narrator's voice reminds us of the final, brutal, practical reality. Purpose is one thing. Survival is another. She has a $40 PO in her pocket, and she just threw away a six-figure salary. She has found her ikigai, her reason for being. She has solved her spiritual problem. But in doing so, Has she created an unsolvable financial one? She has found her meaning. But will that meaning keep the lights on? The courtyard is finished. It has been for 2 weeks. It is not beautiful, it is not pretty, it is not the soft, delicate Zen garden of her failed artistic ego. It is functional. It is, in its own brutalist way, a fortress. The 3-ton concrete culvert pipes, sourced for free from the city reclamation yard, are now massive, immovable planters. They are not decoration. They are a dumping deterrent system, and they work. The illegal dumping has stopped. The hardy, native, low-water grasses sourced from a tenant's brother's landscaping company are not flowers. They are erosion control and graffiti deterrent. They work. The 2 $40 solar lights are not ambiance. They are a security measure, and they work. Tenants who once avoided this concrete pit as a biohazard now sit in it, reading, drinking coffee. The non-performing asset is, at last, performing. Evelyn is there sweeping. She is not admiring her work. She is maintaining the system. She is not the artist, basking in the glow of her creation. She is the engineer, checking for bugs. Her validation is not in the praise she gets. Her validation is in the data. The system is functional, that is all. The inner critic is silent, not healed, but simply irrelevant. It has no data to support its case. And then, a sound. The sharp, decisive click, click, click of expensive heels on the concrete path she designed. Evelyn doesn't look up, but her body registers the presence. She knows that sound. Senora Alvarez. She did not call. She did not schedule. She has simply appeared. The old legacy programming has one last phantom flutter. A cold spike of adrenaline, the test, the final boss. She will hate it. It's ugly. It's just trash. But the engineer mind, the new, cold, functional operating system, calmly overrides it. It is what it is. The data is the data. The system functions. Senora Alvarez does not say, hello. She does not say, it's lovely. She does not, in fact, speak at all. She begins an audit. She walks the perimeter, her eyes scanning, not like an art critic, but like a building inspector. She runs her hand along the rough, unforgiving concrete of the culvert pipes. She examines the function of the barrier. She notes the new desire lines the tenants are wearing into the grass, and how Evelyn's paths have correctly anticipated them. She is not looking at a garden. She is auditing a system. Evelyn just continues sweeping. She is not waiting for a grade. She is not hoping for a job. She has already done the job. The courtyard itself, the fact that it works, is the final report. She is, for the first time in her entire, hollow, people-pleasing life, not needing anything from another human being. Her validation is not in Alvarez's opinion, it is in the fact. And the fact is that she has successfully deployed her function. Alvarez finally stops. She turns, her face as unreadable as the concrete she's standing on. You failed, she says. The words are flat. Evelyn's heart doesn't stop. She doesn't panic. The engineer just waits, processing. Your original signed-off budget was $40 for 2 solar lights. Correct, Evelyn says, her voice as calm and functional as her new world. Alvarez points a single sharp finger at a network of thin black tubes running along the base of the planters. You added a drip irrigation system. That was not on the PO. You went over budget. This is the test. The inner critic is silent. The engineer speaks. I did not, Evelyn says. I sourced the tubing from a medical supply recycling depot. A tenant's brother works there. It was classified as non-sterile, non-usable material. She gestures to the system. Total cost, 0. The system required it. The original plan was inefficient. I corrected for the design flaw post-approval. A long, profound silence. Senora Alvarez just stares. And then the smallest, most infinitesimal and most valuable softening at the corner of her mouth. It is not a smile. It is an acknowledgement. It is the look of one high-level processor recognizing another. Deployment, Alvarez says, and the single word lands with the weight of a contract. Successful. She walks over to Evelyn. She is not a mentor anymore. She is not a guide. She is a client. That, she says, gesturing to the courtyard, was your test, your micro-valor. You proved you could execute a function based on need, not ego. You solved for my problem, not yours. Evelyn is confused. Your problem. My problem, Alvarez says, is that I have a $2 million city revitalization fund, 10 failing neighborhood parks, and a city council full of artists who keep showing me pretty drawings that will cost a fortune and not function. I have a systems failure. I am a general. I need a field commander. I need someone who knows how to build functional, durable, high-impact, low-cost assets out of garbage. She pulls a card from her blazer. I don't need another artist begging for validation. I need a deployment specialist. I need this. She taps the concrete culvert. 10 times. I need your full proposal, including your corporate fee, on my desk by Monday. Can you deploy that function? This is the victory of purpose. This, the narrator explains, is the ikigai made real. The money, the contract is not the goal. It is the consequence. It is the logical, inevitable, and final result of deploying the correct function. For years, Evelyn was a high-level component, the architect, being forced into a low-level slot, the nanny. The existential void was the friction of that profound structural injustice. This moment, this contract, is the sound of the system finally, powerfully aligning. This is Plato's Republic. The city, Alvarez, has found its artisan, Evelyn. She has been given her correct, functional, and valuable role in the system. The professional chaos is over. The nanny is dead. The engineer has a contract, but the dual chaos has two heads. She has fixed her function. But what about the relationship? What about the mismatched anchor she abandoned to make this happen? The apartment is no longer a tomb. It is no longer the silent, hollow stage of two ghosts coexisting. It has been transformed. It is an office. It is a studio. It is a deployment center. Evelyn is at the dining room table, but it is not a dining room table anymore. It is a workstation, covered in city park blueprints, soil testing kits, spreadsheets of recycled materials, and the signed official contract from Senior Alvarez. She is not the nanny who was defined by a void. She is not the artist who was defined by a dream. She is the engineer, and she is defined at last by a function. She is working on the new proposal, the one for the 10 city parks. The energy in the room is not peaceful. It is the quiet, high-voltage hum of pure, unadulterated focus. She is in a state of flow, a state of eudaimonia, that ancient idea of human flourishing, which is not about feeling good but about being good at what you were designed to do. She is, for the first time, a fully calibrated human being. She is a high-level component, running at full capacity, and the system noise of her old existential despair is gone, completely drowned out by the beautiful, clean sound of the work. He has been a ghost in this new world. Since the night she refused the Gables job, since she made the absurd choice to pursue her function, Liam has been an anchor whose chain has been cut. He has been drifting, a spectator in his own home. He has watched her, this new, strange, and formidable woman, with a mixture of fear, resentment, and a profound, baffling sense of dislocation. He was the mismatched anchor, and his entire identity as the stable, sensible one was built on her being stagnant. He was the voice of the family script. But the script has been burned. The identity she had has been vaporized. He stands in the doorway of the living room, which is now her studio, and just watches her. He sees the official contract from the city. He sees the new, complex blueprints. He sees the intense, impersonal, and deeply focused light in her eyes. This is not the weird hobby of drawing dirt. This is a high-level, high-stakes logistical operation. He sees that the woman he knew, the one who was defined by a quiet, manageable, and shared emptiness, is gone. In her place is this force, this CEO. This person who is so aligned with her own purpose that she generates her own gravity. He realizes with a cold, clear, structural certainty that the anchor was him. His stability was not just about control, it was about his own profound fear. He was comfortable in their shared stagnation. Her void was a mirror for his own. His sensible accounting job was his own golden cage, a stable, predictable, and passionless function. Her decision to revolt against her philosophical suicide was a terrifying, unspoken judgment on his own surrender. He was afraid. He was afraid that her new powerful function would make his own lack of one obsolete. He was afraid of being left behind in the normal world while she went off to build a new one. This is the great powerful secret of human systems. We cannot fix another person. We cannot heal a relationship. We can only ever fix ourselves. Evelyn did not work on her relationship. She did not drag him to therapy. She did not beg him to see her. She simply, ruthlessly, and with total focus, fixed her own alignment. She focused, as the Stoics taught, on her own small, internal circle of control. She focused on her own function. She became her own, solid, unmovable center. And in doing so, she changed the gravity of the entire system. She became a new, powerful, disruptive fact. This is the magic of what the great explorers of the psyche called the individual path. When one person in a system, a couple, a family, has the profound, terrifying courage to find their true, authentic self, they become a new force. They change the pattern. They become a mirror, forcing everyone else in that system to reevaluate their own persona, their own legacy code. Liam is now forced by her transformation to see his own. He is no longer the sensible one. He is the one in the cage. Her authenticity is not a judgment on him. It is a judgment on his own inauthenticity. He sees her, hunched over a blueprint, her pencil flying, her face a mask of pure, beautiful, functional concentration. And he has a choice. He can be the mismatched anchor forever and be left behind to drift into his own roommate syndrome. Or he can find his own function in this new system. He walks over slowly. She doesn't look up, too deep in the flow. He doesn't look at her. He looks at the blueprint, and his accountant brain, his own long-dormant high-level function, finally mercifully kicks in. He points, his finger landing on a long list of materials. His voice is quiet, and for the first time in years not patronizing but functional. He tells her that her budget for the drip irrigation is overestimated by 15%. He tells her she has not correctly factored in the depreciation schedule for the new tools she will have to buy. He tells her that her corporate fee is dangerously low for a city contract. She will be eaten alive by taxes and insurance liabilities. He pulls up a chair. He opens his own laptop. He tells her to let him fix it. This is not a romantic reconciliation. This is a systems merger. The roommate syndrome is over. The mismatched anchor has disengaged. And, in his place, a functional partner has just at last been deployed. We are in the apartment. But it is not the apartment. It is not the sterile, silent tomb of two ghosts. It is not the beige, airless container for the roommate syndrome. The apartment has been, itself, redeployed. It is a studio. It is a command center. The dining room table is gone, replaced by a massive drafting board. The walls are covered, not in minimalist, meaningless art, but in city park blueprints, in soil analysis charts, in logistical timelines. The air is not empty. It is charged with the high, clean, silent hum of a system running at full capacity. This is not a home. This is a workshop. This is a place where function is born. Evelyn is at the center of it, a new person, forged in the fire of her own absurd choice. She is leaning over a complex design, her hand moving with a speed and a certainty that is almost alarming. This is not the hesitant, shame-filled artist of the secret folder. This is not the hollow, compliant nanny of the sterile kitchen. This is the engineer. She is in a state of pure, unadulterated flow. This, the narrator explains, is the final, true, and often misunderstood destination. This is not happiness in the way we have been sold it. It is not a state of constant, giddy pleasure. This is what the ancient philosophers called flourishing. It is the feeling of a human being, at last, operating at their highest, most authentic, and most virtuous level. And she is not alone. In the corner at his own smaller, efficient desk is Liam. He is not a digital ghost. He is not the mismatched anchor. He is a man who has been given a choice. He saw her transformation, he saw the contract, and he was forced to confront his own stagnation. He is on his laptop, but he is not scrolling. He is building a new complex spreadsheet. He is cross-referencing her material costs with new supplier bids. He is running a depreciation analysis. He has not found his passion. He has, like her, found his function. He has become the chief financial officer of their new two-person operation. Evelyn stops, her mind hitting a snag in the design. She looks up. "Liam," she says, not a question, just a command. "I need a cost analysis on reclaimed permeable pavers versus poured recycled aggregate concrete for Zone 3. He does not look up. His fingers are flying. "Already on it," he says. "The concrete is 30% cheaper up front, but the long-term maintenance on the pavers is lower. We can make a case for the higher initial cost if we frame it as a long-term reduction in city overhead." She nods, satisfied. "Good, do that." She turns back to her work. This is not romance. This is a systems merger. It is the most profound and most functional intimacy. This is the resolution. This is the answer to the dual chaos that trapped her. She did not fix her relationship. She did not heal her partner. She did not compromise her needs. She simply, ruthlessly and with total unwavering commitment, fixed herself. She found her own authentic load-bearing center, and in doing so, she changed the entire gravitational field of her life. She became a new, powerful, and undeniable fact. And the system, the man who was part of that system, was forced to recalibrate around her new unmovable reality. He either had to align with her new function or be left behind in the old, hollow void. We see her now in this new, functional, and deeply meaningful life. She has stopped asking the passive, hopeless, self-absorbed question that defined her existence. Is this all there is? That is the question of a prisoner. That is the question of a victim. It is the question of a mind turned inward, trapped in the black hole of its own repetitive suffering. She has replaced it. She has replaced it with the active, powerful, and outward-facing question of the engineer. The question of Senora Alvarez. What is my primary function? That is the question that breaks the bars. That is the question that redeploys the soul. This journey, this shift from the void to the verb, is the great, difficult, and necessary work of a human life. It is the search for meaning, not as a feeling, but as a function. If this story, if this pivot from a life of quiet desperation to one of active, deployed purpose resonates with the architect inside of you, then consider this your invitation. Consider supporting this journey, this search for a functional life, by subscribing to this channel and joining a community that is also learning to ask the right questions. We see the final scene. It is late. The studio is quiet, lit only by the 2 desk lamps. Evelyn and Liam are working side by side in a shared, silent state of flow. She puts her pencil down, stretching, the honest physical ache in her shoulders, a testament to a day of real work. She looks at the complex, finished blueprint for the first of the 10 city parks. It is not pretty. It is functional. It is smart. It is real. She looks over at Liam. He is deep in his spreadsheet, his face a mask of concentration. He feels her gaze and looks up. He does not smile a romantic Hollywood smile. He nods, a nod of pure, profound, mutual respect. "Good work," he says. "You too," she replies, and she turns back to her design. We have witnessed the answer. We have seen the cure. The healing for the existential void was not a feeling. It was not finding herself. It was a verb. It was the act of deployment. It was the pivot from "what do I need" to "what does the world need that I can provide?" She did not find her purpose. She built it. She built it out of recycled concrete. She built it out of her own humiliation, and she built it by finally, bravely, choosing to deploy her unique, high-level function in the service of a problem that was not her own. The question then is not, what is your passion? The question is, what is the function that you, and only you, are retaining from the world? Let us know in the comments below. What part of this story, what part of this journey from stagnation to function resonated with you the most?